Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special Halloween episode of Monster Party.
Monster Party!
If you listen to one episode of Monster Party, this is it.
Monster Party!
Get it? You see it? You'll understand it later.
This is it. This is it.
I'm doing a joke that you don't understand until you hear what the topic is.
No, but
you probably know already.
They're going to get it. They're going to get it.
Okay, I'm going to stop talking that way.
All right. And so who are you, sir?
I'm Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
And James has been wanting to do this topic that we're going to do forever.
Before you were born.
Before we had a podcast.
I've been waiting so long.
He's been waiting for this.
This is my big kahuna.
I think we can all agree that we're all fans of this topic.
Yes.
To varying degrees.
How can you not be? If you're a fan of horror, there's no way, like, this topic is important to you. There's no way around it.
I'll say.
And the topic is
What is the topic?
the world of Stephen King.
The world of Stephen King!
And there is only one special guest that we could have tonight.
Stephen
Oh
King!
my God, he's here.
Well, not exactly, guys.
Where's the curtain? Where's the curtain?
But we have the next best thing.
All right.
Next best
What
thing!
we have is a producer and director
Ooh.
who's known for several documentaries that you may have seen,
Holy
including
Christ.
on The Walking Dead, on Val Lewton, on Jack Pierce,
Awesome.
on House of Wax,
Awesome.
American Werewolf in London,
Cool.
Fantastic.
Karloff, Lugosi, Cheney Jr.
Wow.
He's also done several on superheroes such as Batman and Superman.
Well, we're going to get along just fine.
Our special guest tonight, Constantine Nasr.
Constantine Nasr!
Welcome.
Thank you.
And
Wow.
The next best thing.
Thank you.
So can you get us Stephen
pressure.
King? Is what we're what this is really all about is can you get us Stephen King?
I'll call his agent tomorrow.
All right.
You know
There
what?
we
You know
go.
what?
Fair enough.
Forget him. I'm excited to have you. You've done a lot of stuff.
I love that Val Lewton one.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, I do a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
I don't even know what I do.
Things
That's
that
why I'm a
stuff is
producer. I
right-
don't know what I'm doing.
you,
a lot of
you
stuff
make
that's up our alley.
things right that make us happy.
And pertinent, particularly to tonight's topic, Constantine has produced documentaries on the Frank Darabont adaptations of Stephen King, the Mist and the Green Mile,
And Shawshank.
and Shawshank,
And Shawshank.
Oh my God.
and is currently working on the Blu-ray supplemental materials for the new movie It.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I recommend you all go see it. If you haven't seen it already, see it now.
We have all seen it.
I will never get tired of these jokes.
Can I
I'm
tell
still
you?
on Percocet, by the way.
I've been fortunate, yes, to work on it. See, there it goes. Like you try to write an email when you're referencing it, just
Yeah.
like using that word.
That's true.
When you're trying to deal with it on a business level.
Yeah.
It has
it's
to be
very-
in caps and bold
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and quotes.
That'll
every
drive you
time.
mad, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it, I don't know's on third. It's an Abbott and Costello routine.
It is.
We could almost do a Who's on First of Stephen King.
You stop using the winky emoji when you're on, because eventually it gets tired.
Yeah.
Well, look, we are thrilled to have you. This is
Yes.
really exciting. Again, this is something that James has been wanting to do for ages, and this guy Stephen King, he's done so much. I actually checked something on Wikipedia today, and I found out that he's in the top 20 authors of most books sold, something like over 350 million. I couldn't believe it. I went, oh my God, look at that. And then you see all the stories that he wrote. It's like he cranks these out like 2 a year or something
If
like
I could
that.
share a story, there was a friend of mine who turned me on to acid. But before he did
Every
that,
story starts like that.
he turned me on to Stephen King.
Oh,
And what he did is he gave me Night Shift. And Night Shift, that collection of short stories, changed my life. It really did.
Really?
Like to be able to read so many of these stories in a row, and they're all good. And they're even the ones that are kind of experimental and avant-garde. I still enjoyed. I like this guy is great. And then he gave me The Shining. And from that point on, get it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of reading then.
I did. I still read books.
No, I don't mean that as a
Yeah.
joke. No, it's like, look,
It should be a joke, 'cause it was crafted very well.
Look, Constantine, look, not everyone here at this table does as much reading as like James does, you know.
Or me.
Well, or you, or you, and some of us have only read like a couple books, you know.
Which are
There are a few books around here I've noticed.
Yeah, we do some reading around here, Larry.
Yeah. I know, but it's funny. Like, so the thing that you really liked was The Shining.
Well, that's
then?
what got me going.
Yeah.
And then I would say still to this day, probably right there in my top 3 favorite King books is Salem's Lot.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Salem's Lot, to me, is something that I wait for them to do the proper film adaptation.
That was one of the first King books I read, actually.
Yeah.
Salem's Lot.
Yeah, and it's a great horror story, but it's also a really grand adventure and
So-
character study
So Salem's Lot is the one with the little town and
with the vampires.
Yes.
King was quoted as saying that he read Dracula, he was thrilled by it, but he thought that he could do better. And I actually, I got to say, I think he did improve on Dracula.
Without
I think
a doubt.
Salem's Lot
I
is
completely
an
agree.
incredible novel. Constantine, what was your introduction to King?
That's a good point. I want to ask you this though. Did he say he wanted to improve on it, or I thought the idea was, what would happen if Dracula? Because he said if Dracula came to New York, you know, he probably wouldn't last a night. But if he came to like rural Maine, then he could really feast and thrive.
Right.
So. But
Are
I
you
guess
saying
it's
that
interesting
King never said
debate
that?
If Dracula versus Salem's Lot, which is the better vampire novel?
Well, look, I do remember a quote where King said, "This book is incredible, and it could be done even better." And then he did it himself.
He's a
That's
presumptuous bastard. Okay.
I do of the two though. I have to say, Salem's Lot is the more enjoyable read.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
it's
Dracula.
Well, Dracula's a very different format too. It's
Yeah.
the way it's
Well, Salem's Lot is contemporary. It's a lot more accessible.
right.
Yeah.
Constantine, what was your introduction to King?
I would have to say it would be The Shining, the movie.
Oh, you saw the movie
The movie
first.
on TV.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Was it
How old are you?
I was
Wait,
probably
was it like an
6. I was probably
Wait, was it like
Wow.
on
6 or 7?
HBO or
I-
something, or
I
was it on
can't-
commercial television? You
it's,
know, with
it's hard to remember. See it, but I do know call it sacrilege. I mean, that movie still remains one of my favorite adaptations.
I
One of my
agree.
favorite horror movies.
I totally
and
agree.
I think that's what made me a Stanley Kubrick fan. But it also certainly struck me as I want to see more like this.
Right.
And
Right,
so
right.
my first book was a paperback edition of Night Shift. But my
okay.
first novel that I read completely was it. And I was
Oh, is that
probably
right? That's a
I was
huge
probably
book.
11 or 12. I mean, I was born in 74, so it came out in 86.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought it when it came out. So I was probably, and I tried reading it, and I got through it somehow.
yeah, that's a
So
Yeah,
I mean, it ends up
biting
being
off
very,
a lot.
Yes, it took a while, but I mean, it paid off, and no, it still pays today, apparently.
Nice.
But it is nice. It is nice to work on something that you have like a 20-odd. Wait, how old am I? 30-odd year connection to.
Yeah, but here's the
That's
interesting thing,
incredible.
Constantine. So here's this guy. He's this prolific writer. He writes like crazy, and he's pumping stuff out. And it's horror stuff. It's horror fantasy. It's supernatural, and it's great stuff. Readers are reading it and going, "This is terrific. This is great." And then all of a sudden, Hollywood comes in, and Hollywood says, "Hey, maybe we can capitalize on this. Maybe we could take this story and make it into something really cool that the kids out there want to see." I'm Hollywood. I want to make something that the kids are cool with.
I have a question though too, because the first adaptation that Hollywood did was in 1976, which was Carrie by Brian De Palma. But now I always wondered though, because that movie was a huge hit.
Yeah.
But at the time, the Stephen King name really wasn't as big of a thing
No.
yet. So was that movie more a breakout for Brian De Palma than it was for Stephen King at the time?
My understanding, it was like a symbiotic experience. I mean, it was a
Okay.
one-two punch.
Okay, because
That quickly. I mean, I think Carrie was being shot while Salem's Lot was being written. Is that
okay,
right? And then
okay.
they sold the rights. And I, for full disclosure, I just produced the commentary for Salem's Lot last year with Toby Hooper.
Okay.
I will tell the story now. You will not hear my voice, sadly, on that commentary, but I spent 4 hours with Toby or more. I mean, the movie's
wow.
3 hours, so we sat
right.
in a recording booth and I had a wonderful many-hour conversation with Toby. And due to the fact that I chose to have him represent him, people don't know this. They're like, why is there a lot of gaps in this commentary? Toby should be talking more. Well, it was because I was there prompting him, moderating a commentary that I then tried to fill out with questions after the fact.
Sure.
Right.
But it was, to me, more important to have Toby talk as much as possible than it was to
Sure.
hear my nasally sounding voice on a commentary that I felt
Don't
was...
ever say that.
Well, can you guys edit this out? Okay. Yeah, so the commentary was really special, and we talked about how the rights came and how... I mean, all this stuff was happening so fast, and I mean, King was like a monster then. I mean, writing and Salem's Lot, and then The Shining, and just like.
And so for our listeners who don't really know, Carrie, the story Carrie, is about high school girl.
Yeah, well, King, drew a lot on his own experiences. Like The Mangler, the story in Night Shift, came from he worked in an industrial laundry, so that he came up with the idea of a homicidal laundry machine, and that ended up being a movie too, as many of the Night Shift stories did. But yeah, Carrie. In a nutshell, in a really quick nutshell, Carrie is about a teenage girl who is bullied, and she also has telekinesis. And right when she becomes a woman and has her first period, the power is strengthened. She also has a religious fanatic mother who's very domineering, to say the least, and is bullied by a couple of high school students, and then Carrie, pushes Carrie over the edge, and chaos ensues at the prom.
Right.
If only we had more telekinetic girls now.
No, and
there
the
wouldn't be no bullying.
And the
really?
movie Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma, it stars Sissy Spacek, who, by the way, is an Academy Award winner. I know how much you guys like that. Piper Laurie, Amy Irving, William Catt, John Travolta, Nancy Allen, Becky Buckley, PJ Souls, just to name a few.
That's right.
Griff
I mean,
Randall.
it's funny because it has a lot of great talent from that time in that film.
And it became so successful. And my introduction to King is a little ironic because my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, was fanatical about Carrie. And I was thinking at the time, oh, this is like a teenage girl story. I'm not into this at all. And then in the theater, I see the trailer for The Shining with the blood coming out of the elevator. I'm like, wow, this is cool. And I thought of picking up The Shining, but the paperback that had just come out by King was The Stand. So I picked that up instead. And that was ambitious for me, like it was for you, Constantine, because it was a long novel. And I wasn't used to reading anything that long that I didn't have to read for school. But I picked it up, and I was hooked. From then on...
Another of my favorites.
Oh, it's my single favorite novel. And Salem's Lot is my second.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Can I point out something really quick so the listeners at home realize you've got Carrie, you've got Christine. There's a lot of
Little
cool
paraphernalia
toys and
here.
child Pennywise.
That's the way we
all
roll.
of the posters all over the place.
That's the way we roll, buddy.
We create a world.
Really cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like I went in the world of
Yeah,
Stephen
you
King.
know, and look, I just want to. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to jump so forward. I thought we were going to stay on Carrie for a moment because
Well, he's telling his own personal stories. And sometimes a personal story jumps around a little bit. It's called life.
And
you
Stephen
see,
King has written like 157 things. We're going to be here all night if we cover every
That's
one of
right.
them.
I just wanted to say one neat thing about Carrie. I
Let's
remember.
hear it.
Okay,
Better be
look,
just one.
It,
Go. You have 30 seconds.
It's a really scary film. It's a great film. Now, I'm talking about the classic from 76, okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Now,
Awesome.
I remember, and Matt, maybe you remember too, the local horror channel, Creature
Sure, yeah.
Features, had a special contest. And I remember I wanted to enter it. And it's like you had to write something about what Stephen King would put in a film or something or in a book. And you had to send it to Bob Wilkins. And then he picked like one winner out of all these contestants that threw in the thing. The winner got to see the movie Carrie in a giant theater all by themselves.
Really?
And now and the funny thing is, you guys are all laughing. Oh wow, that's kind of stupid.
Why is that?
No. Because normally when you see a scary movie, you've got your loved one, you've got your buddy. So when you see something scary, you go and you grab on them and you can look. And well, this woman won, and she sat in this theater and they filmed her. They filmed her reacting to the movie, and they showed the footage. They showed the footage
my
the
gosh,
following
great.
week, and
The
it was
very first episode of Real Housewives San Francisco.
no. I'll just never forget because Matt, I didn't see it until much later, but I remember watching this woman's reactions. When certain things happened on the screen, all they could show is this woman like freaking out. She was jumping, she was hiding her eyes, and at the end they interviewed her. And again, this is 76, okay? And she goes, "Oh my God, that's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen." And it was so cool. It was very exciting.
Well-
Matt. So there's that story.
from
Do you remember
watching,
that?
I don't remember that, but it sounds exciting. And all I could say is that from the very first moments of that movie, from when it first started, going through the credits, let's just say I was hooked.
Of course. Well, that's the genius of De Palma, though, because
this story is great.
Girls in the locker room, topless,
In the
taking
shower.
showers.
Yeah,
Well,
and I went, between King and De Palma, they know how to tell a yarn.
But that was the genius of De Palma, though. He was making a really commercial exploitation film at the same time as a good horror film, because that movie,
it makes sense why they're naked.
Yeah, of course.
Well, you know what the funny thing is, and James, maybe you can back me up here. I think that film, standing alone, I think it can withstand the test of time. But I understand that there was this feeling that, hey, let's put a new dress on the old gal. And it was remade, not
Been remade a couple of times.
yeah.
And then let's pour blood all over that dress.
Yes.
I think you mentioned it before. I mean, it's a testament to the cast.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if you mentioned John Travolta.
I did.
You
Yeah.
did? Okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry. But yeah, I mean,
If you're paying attention, you would.
Look, I'm on Percocet. This doesn't have to be a contest.
But I mean, I'm not. I don't want to knock any other cast of other Stephen King films.
Please
but
do.
Let's just say the best films have the best cast.
Sure.
So and you can certainly see other really good films have, or you can see those actors in other films that aren't as good.
Yeah.
But when you put some of Stephen King's best stories,
match
match them with the best cast.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got James Mason in Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
And that sells it.
Okay, some people don't like classically trained Hollywood actors. Okay,
No, I love James Mason. No. James Mason was miscast. He should have been Barlow.
That was a conceptual.
In the book, Barlow was more like James Mason.
Right.
That's what pisses me off about that miniseries is the fact that they take the most interesting character in the book and make him Nosferatu. Like, what are you doing?
But at the time, though, it was pretty scary.
I can't argue
No,
with that.
it's scary.
No,
if you're,
you can argue.
It's scary if you're 7.
If that was their take, I mean, it worked for me, and certainly is that Barlow right there?
Yeah, there he is.
There.
Didn't Hooper want to make it like a feral animal creature, right?
So that's his take.
Sure. Right.
I mean, I can go on record on some of the other films that I think even Stephen King himself has written that I think aren't as effective as his own.
I would agree.
Are.
I would totally agree with that.
Faithful, faithful doesn't necessarily mean good.
Yeah.
For a movie, right?
So I'm gonna jump to Pet Sematary because I think so I love Pet Sematary.
That means
the
he's
book,
happy.
No, Pet Sematary.
and I think the movie is a very strong first half or first third, 2/3, and I think that when Gage comes back as Chucky, I mean,
It's a little silly. It's a little.
Whoa. He's no.
although granted-
He's not. No, you take that back, sir, because he's not Chucky.
Right.
Chucky was like comical, going.
No,
But Gage kind of did the whole.
He is comical.
They did what they could
I
with
mean,
a child actor.
I know.
think,
But I think all of a sudden, I didn't watch the documentary that's made about this. Right? I haven't studied this film in particular, why these choices were made, because Stephen King, I think he actually wrote the script.
he did write the script.
Yeah, so
Mary
here we go.
Lambert directed.
Yeah,
right.
I know that. But all of a sudden, Gage can speak words. He's got a different sort of intelligence. He's
kind of more evil.
He's
Yeah.
more of an evil. I mean, you can bring him back from the dead as a dead version of himself, which I think is what was in the book.
Right.
Yeah.
But when he starts maniacally behaving like I'm out to for vengeance, and unless he was really taken over by the spirit of Denise Crosby's sister or something, which wasn't the case. But all I'm saying is they didn't need to do anything different in, let's say, Carrie. The changes I think they made, in my opinion, in Salem's Lot worked for that movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because Tobe Hooper knew how to. He knew what he wanted, and it was very effective. I just don't think like at the end of. I mean, I think Pet Sematary really has some really high. As a father of kids, I mean, I watch that movie and I still hurt.
Right.
when I
Yeah,
see
it's-
it.
I mean,
It's
for
harrowing.
listeners, if you don't know, Pet Sematary, this family moves to this new house that has this pet cemetery close by, and the neighbor says, "Oh, yeah, there's this thing where there's this busy road in front. If an animal like a pet would get hit by a vehicle or whatever, they put him in the pet cemetery, and then the pet would mysteriously come back to life.
But changed.
Slightly different. Actually, more than slightly different. And
vicious and kind of murderous.
And what Constantine is talking about is that tragically there are two little kids in this that belong to the family. A little boy, the younger one, actually gets hit by a truck. When it's a very as a parent, it's a very difficult thing to see.
I think that's part of the problem with the nature of adapting a writer like King, because so much of what he puts in his fiction, has to do with the human experience. And Pet Sematary in particular, I remember he said it was too dark, and he had locked it away, and his wife Tabitha convinced him, I think, to go ahead and finish it. But the nature of the book, when it draws you in that whole, let's say, final third, it works on a deeper level than a horror movie would, because at some point it's the nature of the medium where King himself had a quote where he said, sometimes you just got to put on the mask and go booga booga. And, and Pet Sematary is a perfect example of that, because at the end of the day, it does become kind of a horror movie, and you've got this little toddler who comes back. And as a parent, it's absolutely nightmarish. But in the book, it works on the level that it's supposed to work on. And in a movie, it's much more surface.
And I would say, as someone who just recently underwent surgery, a knife to the Achilles tendon.
Right.
Yes.
It has
always works for me.
The film also has the great Fred Gwynn in it from the Munsters, who's wonderful in that film.
I'm not here to totally criticize that film, because
why do you hate Pet Sematary?
You were hating on Barlow, and I think defending Barlow here.
Fair enough.
And all I was saying was that that was a radical change, and you could say things like the Shining, and I'll defend the book and I'll defend the movie. I think
I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
But I think with regard to Gage's resurrection, he becomes less effective. Again, I haven't watched that movie in a while since I've had kids. I mean, and I'm sure that if I saw it again, I would probably have an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
But I think that if my little girl came back, even from an emotional standpoint,
sure,
I wouldn't necessarily need to have the "I'm coming to get you." I don't think you need that, because
I agree.
That the actors, Denise and I can't remember the name of the
Dale Midkiff.
So Denise Crosby and Dale Midkiff. I mean, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
In memory serves, and I would.
The cast is great.
Oh yeah, I mean, the cast is, and the kid is actually quite good. I just think that you didn't need to turn it up a notch.
Well, it's funny because when we had Denise on the show and we asked her about that, and she said that Mary Lambert had to try to make the kid feel comfortable. They spent a lot of time with him saying, now we're going to do pretend, we're going to play act, we're going to try to make the kid do some bigger than life things. I understand where you're going. I
do think they, considering that they were dealing with a real kid, I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, that's the thing. It must have been very hard to get that right. And I think I do know what you mean, though. Like the theatricality of a movie, it's like you want to make it. Like James said, it's like it comes down to being a horror film.
There is a Chucky quality, though. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't mean to be snarky, but
but I think there is. He's throwing out those, "Mommy, I want to play," and
Right.
And I agree with you. I do not think that you needed that. I think what could have worked for me is to make him look a little more dead. Like done some stuff with makeup, and not have him say anything, and have him just be mute, a little more decayed.
It's funny with all this stuff, and understand how old that kid was. I think he was 3.
Yeah, Miko Hughes.
and a great little kid. But again, to try to get something so young, an amazing acting performance is really difficult, especially something that dark. And with all the Stephen King stuff, when you read it, he can put something on the page with using words that you put in your mind. You read this stuff and it goes in your mind, and you paint that little picture in your mind. To try to put it on the screen is much more difficult.
Well,
now Gage would be Andy Serkis.
No, you're right. You're right.
You bring up a really good point.
But Constantine, I want to ask you.
Did I?
Thank you, Percocet.
But talking about all the different adaptations, King, why is he so? Is this stuff so adaptable? Because you look at other horror writers of his generation. I mean, Dean Koontz, James Herbert, Peter Straub, they put out books too, and movies made into
A
their
lot of
stuff.
them, yeah.
But it seems like Stephen King, like,
Captured
what
something.
makes his stuff so adaptable? Do you think? What is it that draws Hollywood to him?
I would refer you to his Dance Macabre book. I mean, because
Which I love that book.
Yeah, I mean, he talks at length about his generation being. He was the monster kid generation. He was.
Yes.
He grew up on movies, and he also grew up on literature. And I think he just writes cinematically. I get that, and he's acknowledged that's kind of how he writes.
He also grew up looking at Famous Monsters magazine as he got a little older, and he actually sent a story, knowing that Forey Ackerman was a literary agent, sent a story, and the funny thing, so he sent the story to Forey Ackerman, go, hey, check out my new, and Forey turned him down.
Wow.
The funny,
Not enough puns.
yeah, it's like, can you imagine Forey's career, how that might have gone if he took Stephen King? But the funny story is, they met years later, and Forey brought that original story that Stephen had sent to him.
Awesome.
And
It's
Stephen,
still crap.
Well, they did publish it, I think, in a later issue in the 90s in Famous Monsters.
Oh,
but,
nice.
One of the things I
Thanks.
So one of the things I was going to actually bring in my little show and tell. I did not. I brought stuff, but I did buy this on eBay. Have to admit, this is the Forey Stephen King connection.
yes,
Okay.
I found a copy of The Shining signed to Forey from Stephen King.
Oh my God.
And I was the lucky winner on eBay, so I meant to bring that tonight
That's awesome.
because
How much you get it for?
I think I paid $200.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm assuming. I mean, it was probably after Forey passed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I knew Forey fairly well, and just it was nice to be able to think of him when I had the book, as opposed to I've got some book randomly signed
Right.
from Stephen King. It
Right.
was more because this was Forey's book.
sure.
And I, much like all of you, knew the story about Forey turning down.
That's funny.
Yeah. So.
But like it's true, like that Dance Macabre book is his nonfiction book just about horror culture, and when I read that, it was like, wow, like you're right. He was like, wow, this is a monster kid, and he would have all his lists of his favorite horror films and everything. That really, that really struck me because it's like, wow, this he's just like me.
I also think that there is a thing with Stephen King's work that we were talking about Salem's Lot and the idea of bringing Dracula to Maine. Mm-hmm. And what I think Stephen King really captured is bringing horror to mainstream reality.
Yeah, the mundane.
The
everyday.
mundane, right.
Current today.
And the things that he would do, like, and it got to be maddening later in some of his works, but the idea of product names, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go get a loaf of bread, he'd actually use the brand name of something. Right. And so it was these
Wonder
little things.
bread.
Yeah, where for example, a type of bread.
Right.
But those little ornaments on the tree would make those stories become just more real.
Exactly.
More rooted in reality. And I think that that's something that he did very well that I don't really think anyone had done to the extent that he did before that.
Yeah.
He quotes Matheson as being a big inspiration.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
But I mean, again, I'm not originating this thought, and I'm not articulating something that hasn't been discussed before. But if you look at the timing, we talked about these sort of 1-2 hits.
Yeah.
All these things were happening when, right off the heels of The Exorcist, I think people wanted something that could have been the girl next door that becomes a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, the truth is, there was a sort of a marriage made in heaven, like early on. I mean, no other author, I don't think, can claim having been able to be both successful in his craft, to have a following that was generated. It didn't all happen just overnight. I mean,
That's I'm
grew.
curious because Carrie was 76. Salem's Lot was the very next thing actually that was adapted, which was 79. By the time 80 hit, he had The Shining. But when would you say Stephen King became an actual institution? Because it was right around that period. Because there was a point where it suddenly, like, his name on anything was like gold for Hollywood. You know,
he became a best-selling writer. I mean, by the late 70s, I mean, his name was being associated with these films that were being sold or books that were being adapt it. But I mean, the truth is, he's a great writer, and he comes up with amazing stories. I mean, we're talking about Pet Sematary. I mean, what other author is going to write a book like that? Or The Stand? He has guts, and he's good, and he just kept getting better. And whatever demons he had, I mean, he poured them into his work, and I mean, the guy's 1 in a billion.
But Constantine, let me ask you something though. So here's this writer who has proven himself, great writer. So when you go to Hollywood, it's like, well, Mr. Hollywood, why don't you follow the story that he has? Why throw this stuff in there that makes it a little different? Now, it's interesting. We were all talking about The Shining. Now, like you, I saw the movie first. I didn't read the book, and to me, it was like, wow, creepy ass film, whatever. But my understanding is there's some things in the film that are different from the book.
Many things.
Very different.
Many things.
And didn't King at first, like, he was upset about it, but he's kind of come around.
He goes
since
back
then,
and forth,
like,
doesn't he?
You know, like about liking and appreciating the movie.
Come on, Constantine. Give us the skinny.
James, you want to say anything?
More often than not, he will claim that he is not a fan of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think that right now he doesn't comment. I think that's the official line is he will not comment on
Right.
But
the
see,
movie.
now that movie, though, it's interesting because I've seen most of the Stephen King films.
Yeah, me too.
And that is probably my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I remember seeing it because I read the book first and then saw the movie. And I remember I was conflicted because it was so different, but yet I still really loved it.
Right.
Because, you know, the character of Jack Torrance in the book is nuanced, and you really get into that this is basically a good guy who's trying to make up for his past problems.
It's a tragedy.
And he's struggling with alcoholism, right?
So
It's
you
much
got the
more-
alcohol
yeah.
problem.
So for listeners, you know, it's the story of the guy who goes with his family to this hotel up in the mountains,
Colorado,
it gets snowed in every winter, and it gets snowed that no one can really stay there, you know. But they want to keep someone there to make sure that nothing happens to the building.
In a nutshell, the ghosts of the hotel possess him,
right,
and get him to become this murderous maniac.
Because the hotel itself has a very checkered past. There were
Yes.
gangsters that stayed there, and it has evil in it.
But what I love about, and I still get tickled watching that movie to this day. Every time I watch it, I love it. Like,
Yeah, me too, I love it.
and I've gone back and I've read The Shining again, and then you put on the Kubrick film, and you go from the very first shot of Nicholson, you just go, he's going to kill him. He may kill them in the car.
It's true. To drive off a cliff.
Yeah. I mean, it's so obvious, but I love it. And it's one of the things that I think that movie does capture is the feel of that novel.
Yeah.
The feel of the scariness of that novel.
Right.
And then, you know, you fast forward to the Steven Weber one there.
Right.
Did he write the screenplay
saw
to
that.
that?
Yeah, King did.
Yeah. And,
That was a miniseries, right, for TV?
And it's awful.
Is it?
It's terrible.
Really?
The way that it's shot is flat and uninteresting.
It doesn't-
and then,
doesn't
and,
work.
And then, for a classic example, the hedge animals.
Yeah.
That they didn't do that in the Kubrick film,
Right.
but they tried to do it here. So you've got this CGI, and this is a bad idea. It only works in a novel, and I don't think there's anything wrong with getting to a place where you go, let's just keep that in the novel. You got the novel, you can read that in the novel, that'll work.
So what is it with the hedge animals? What is it?
These hedge animals that are like, there's a name for it. What do they call that? Topiary?
Oh, topiary,
Yes,
right.
topiary.
Topiary. And so, yeah, you know, the bushes that look like giraffes and
right.
elephants and whatever. And in the book, these things actually come alive.
Yeah. That's
And
threatening.
and are monsters in the book. And I remember reading that and going, oh, that's kind of cool, because I'm creating the pictures in my mind.
Sure.
And that's how books work. And that's usually something that you can never recreate on screen, especially something that if I described it to you in a pitch meeting, you'd go, that sounds a little silly.
Right.
And so that's why I don't mind now some artistic license, unless it has to do with something where it's changing a character drastically. And that's where I had problems with Salem's Lot, because you're taking a focal point of a novel, which was Barlow, which was this character that was this charismatic vampire, to the point where when he does that monologue in the novel about how, look, I give you a lot of credit for coming after me in all these ways, but ultimately you're doomed.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite scenes. And I would even argue, and a lot of people would probably disagree with this, but I even liked the Rob Lowe remake more than the Tobe Hooper one.
Really?
Because
I never saw that.
they were a little closer to what Stephen King, I think, was trying to do. Now, would I say that that's a perfect film either? Oh, no.
So, Stephen King's problem with The Shining, I'm sure he has a number of issues, but from what I understand is his big issue is the Jack Torrance character. Because as you say, like, he's not a man on his way to being cracked up, and he's broken from the first frame, right? But for me, I wouldn't want that movie any other way. That movie, again, maybe because I was so young when I saw it, but again, I think I can tell nostalgically this is an entertaining, fun movie, or this is a really, really good film.
Right. Well, I think, was it James? Maybe you pointed this out somewhere about how in the Kubrick's version, it's more that yes, you have a kind of guy who's already like a little bit on the edge, and the ghosts or the evilness of the Outlook Hotel simply
push
that out.
Right.
So, so it's like in some ways it makes it even more just as suspenseful, though, because like, oh shit, this guy's already teetering, and this is the worst place you can go, So I think, I think it does work though too. The casting of Nicholson is perfect.
But you do make a very good point about the idea of that with Jack Torrance in the film. Yeah, you are kind of radically redefining that character. But I guess for me, it's a case-by-case thing of like, I think all they did was just push the story a little bit farther ahead of making him closer to his crazy.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, you get more of his gradual climb to crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, isn't it true that people always say, "Oh, well, the book is always better"? Look, any book, whether it be a Stephen King book, whether it's The Shining, Carrie, or like a J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter's. There's so much stuff in the book. There's no way you can possibly put everything into a film.
At least Kubrick made an interesting adaptation. And it wasn't just a throwaway. It was significant.
Right.
And then all the crazy subliminal, all the weird little Easter eggs all over that thing that continue to manifest
and
themselves.
the weird theories about the movie that people
Did you
have.
see Room 237?
Yeah, 237 is crazy.
It's probably
crazy.
the less spoken of that. I'm
So bizarre.
The moon, the faking the moon landing thing is probably my favorite conspiracy thing of all time.
Nuts.
No, so for listeners, there are these people who are so obsessed with the film The Shining, and they feel that
They see conspiracies in deciphering all these little symbols and messages, and one of them even played the movie backwards. And
that's just to me.
I'm sorry,
that's
Kelsey,
just
we got to cover it.
That's just a testament, though, to Kubrick to making interesting movies.
Yes.
People are so obsessed with it.
Fascinating.
Hold on. I would recommend, rather than going to see that movie, try on the internet to go find, I think it was Channel 4 in England that did a 1 minute behind the scenes. It was like a commercial for Channel 4. I think it was at Channel 4.
Yeah.
That takes you behind the sets. Like they recreated the entire set of The Shining.
I
inside
saw
out.
that.
Genius.
You know what I'm talking about? Like,
all
that-
one
and
shot.
And you have to really look for Jack.
Oh
in it.
yeah, I mean it may be 45 seconds.
Yes, I've seen.
Look for it on the internet. It is really cool. Have you seen it?
It's on
Yes.
YouTube. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
YouTube.
awesome.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
On,
also-
on YouTube, I also saw one too where somebody put up this thing of how they prove that Jack was the caretaker the entire time. And so when Jack Nicholson is coming through the lobby in the very beginning of the movie,
Right.
where he's coming to the Overlook, in the background you see someone dressed like Jack Torrance in the background cleaning up something.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of scenes like that where he's
Really?
like, oh, there he is.
Wow.
And I love stuff like that.
That's cool.
I think that same theorist also found a way to explain it by saying that he was his own character in the novel that he was writing.
Yes, I remember
okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, some of these YouTube people have a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yes.
But let's face it, Kubrick was a genius, and you're not going to find those elements like in The Lawnmower Man
Or Children of the
Graveyard
Corn.
Shift, or Children of the Corn.
There's
right.
lots of crazy
Or The
theories
Dead
about
Zone.
Children of the
Yeah.
Corn. Yeah.
Christine, Firestarter, Cat's Eye. Come on, you're not going to find that.
Yeah.
I think we have to acknowledge, at least for the first 15 years or 20 years, or at least the first half dozen movies. I mean, you've got Brian De Palma making his first movie. Essentially, it's like
That's the thing too.
It's De Palma.
He
it's David
attracts such
Cronenberg.
huge talent.
It's Toby Hooper.
Every
John Carpenter.
every major horror director.
Like, I know I'm going to miss
Romero.
Romero.
Cronenberg. Yeah, I know it's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Rob Reiner.
I mean, we can go. I was just thinking like the early batch of movies.
And Dead Zone is another one. I'm glad that you brought up Dead Zone because Dead Zone is another one where
one of my favorite of
that's
his.
that's in I would say in the cream of the crop. Of,
This is from 1983.
That's one of my favorite Stephen King movies and one of my favorite David Cronenberg films.
Yeah.
I agree.
So for listeners who don't know, it's a really cool film, and it's one of the books I read, and then I loved the film. I really did. So it's about this guy. He's got this relationship with this girl. Seems like everything's going to be great and hunky-dory, and then all of a sudden he gets in this car accident. And he's in a coma for a little bit, and he comes out, and it's a while. He's in the coma for a while, but when he comes out, he has
a power.
He has this power where he can, when he touches someone, he can foresee the future, what's going to happen with the person, or what this person's going to do, or something like that. And you ask yourself, how would you treat this power if you came out and you were able to?
Right.
Let's say you go to your friend and you touch your
Vegas.
friend. No, it's right. You touch your friend and you feel like, you sense that, your friend's going to win $1 million in Vegas. Hey, that's great. But what if you touch your friend and all of a sudden you find out that he's actually going to kill you a year from now? What would you do?
Right.
What would you do if you had that power?
Can you change it if it's the future?
Or what if you happen to meet a political candidate who's running for president and you touch them and all of a sudden you feel that this person is gonna nuke the.
We're living that, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
No, and it's like I ask you, listeners,
Where's
what
Johnny
would you
Smith
do?
now
What would you do if you
to
had that
grab
power?
somebody?
That if you touched a politician, you realize that this person is going to destroy the earth by launching a bunch of nukes. What would you do if you knew that?
One of the great things about the approach is that it's not like, oh, hey, I've got this talent, I'm going to play with it. No, this is a curse on this guy.
Yeah.
This is not
And
something
he's like just a regular. I mean, his name is Johnny Smith.
Right.
So it's like he's like just a regular guy. He's
Played by Christopher Walken.
And then
great job.
The love interest is Brooke Adams. At her yummiest.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you don't like Brooke Adams?
You didn't like her?
I love her, but I think Body Snatchers was her yummiest.
Shockwaves actually maybe. her
Okay.
yummiest. She's just yummy.
saying
Apples and oranges.
I'm just saying it was the golden age of Brooke Adams.
It looked.
But now
I liked her.
But he comes out of the coma.
They were engaged.
And then so he reestablishes contact with her, and she throws him a bone. She's like, hey, like here's the sex you didn't get.
That he waited.
It's
That's right.
one night only.
Because she's married
go
now.
for it. Yeah.
She never thought he would come out of this coma.
Right,
so
right.
she goes on to have a life of her own now. Think
But now
about
she's
it.
what kind of future Dead Zone power stuff are you getting during sex?
That's true.
Right?
Wow.
Is that in the book?
No, hey.
Well, as
I
it's
don't
going
know.
on,
It's
it's like
not.
yeah.
It's not.
you're faking this.
No.
Aren't you?
No.
You're thinking of your husband.
I think you have to touch them with your hand, not with,
Well,
So what? You don't use your
maybe
hands
use
during
your
sex?
hands.
Wow.
Constantine, help me out
I'm
here.
thinking, thinking of the deleted scenes that could have been in that movie.
Can I get your wife on the phone?
Okay. Look. I think we're dancing around the really great stuff. So Martin Sheen, who plays this political candidate
Greg
in this
Stolzen.
film, and he's terrific. And the funny thing is he went on to play the president of the United States in The West Wing.
Yes, he did.
That's right.
But here he is in this film, and he's a very interesting politician who's going to clean up America. He's going
He's
to
ruthlessly ambitious.
yes.
Right.
And that scene where Christopher Walken goes and does his touch and sees the future
Right.
of Stilson is one of the creepiest. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
I
great.
replay that scene in my mind of how terrifying that is.
You would say it could happen now, kind of a thing.
You could, yes, you could.
And it's interesting
Fingers
how
crossed. Let's hope for the best.
Now, I have not read that book, but I know there's a lot more going on with Johnny Smith in that book, and they Cronenberg kind of broke him into 3 sections.
Yes.
It was he goes after the killer, the kids who fall into the lake, and then there's the Stilson story. So it was, but I thought it really worked well as a movie the way he did that.
Yeah, Jeffrey Boehm wrote the script, and he did a great job.
Yeah, and Tom Skerritt, Colleen DeWurst, Anthony Zerbe, great cast.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think of that movie, Constantine?
No, I think it's one of the best. I think it's one of Cronenberg's best films.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one when you think of David Cronenberg, you don't think of that movie.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But if you're a
right.
Stephen
Body
King
Think of
fan,
Scanners, actually.
Yeah.
You know, heads exploding and
Right.
no, I mean it was his first. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure where they shot it. If they actually shot it in America or they shot it in Canada.
I think maybe in Canada. Definitely the winter cold.
Yeah.
the-
Feels like Canada.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
Well, it's Cronenberg. It must have been Canada.
Yeah. And it's probably it was at the time I think one of Cronenberg's more mainstream films.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean it's really
I
good,
think
really good.
That's one of those movies I think everything after View to a Kill with Walken kind of goes Walken. This is one of those movies where I have to just I just don't think about Christopher Walken.
Right,
He
right.
actually gives.
He plays the character.
He does
yeah.
play. Like
and it's sympathetic. It's sympathetic. I
Very
feel
much.
for the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Not only okay,
What
he
did Communion do to that guy?
no, it's like he didn't
Yeah,
ask.
really.
He didn't ask for this power. I mean, he had everything seemed to go for him, and then he gets into this coma, and the next thing he realizes when he wakes up, his fiancée is married to someone else who has kids.
Well,
you know, and
it's such a horror. It's almost horror fantasy, but it's from such a human
Yes.
point of view. You know, that's the thing. It's not. There's no like otherworldly monsters or
No,
anything. It's the
again, it's very character driven.
Very
one of the
much.
greatest musical scores ever written by Michael.
I was going to say that.
Michael Kamen, and usually Howard Shore had done the music for Cronenberg, but this I think Shore was unavailable, so Kamen did it. It was
very good. Yeah, that's
awesome.
a really good one.
Yeah.
I mean, but don't you think we're talking about everything? We haven't mentioned the Stand. I mean, you mentioned it,
Yeah.
but in terms of chronological King,
Right.
I mean, all these works have such deeper meaning than just the standard, boogie story.
Right.
I mean, we were
Right.
talking about all the other writers that are his contemporaries, and there are some really incredible writers that I'm fans of that I actually think their works probably could get adapted very well. I'm surprised some of them hadn't. I mean, again, I'm a big fan of Ramsey Campbell, and I think that Ramsey's work. I mean, it's probably actually too scary at times.
Oh,
But,
horrifying.
Yeah. But I think it just shows you that King, he could be versatile. He could change it up, and there was
Right.
whether it was political undercurrents or personal or epic with what he did in The Stand.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't sure where he was going to go next. And I think one of the other things that makes at least the first 20 years of his writing really, really interesting, and it does culminate in it. He uses kids, and I think that the
Right.
fact that so many of
That's
his
true.
works
Yes.
are about children, and as a kid, when I was watching these things, whether it was I can't really relate to Danny Torrance, I guess, but in a way, I guess I could because I
Can't
felt
you? You don't have a little boy in your mouth?
well. I could write REDRUM, believe me, I did. And
You will before
I got
you
the lipstick,
leave.
and my mom's like, "What are you doing?" I don't know. I wasn't wearing it. I'm just saying I'm putting it on the wall.
Tony told me to.
Yeah, but I mean, all these films and books had to do with if they weren't really about kids. It's like Salem's Lot. I mean, the kids in Salem's Lot
Right.
make you feel for the parents that are losing the kids. in
Right,
Salem's
right.
Lot.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, every one of these stories. I mean, I guess there are kids in Dead Zone, but
Even
The single scariest scene in Salem's Lot, or the two, I would say, is the school bus
Right.
yeah.
and
the window, at the window.
The
Yeah,
window.
the window,
The bedroom window
yeah.
is terrifying.
Well,
it still
and-
creeps me out today.
And Cujo has the kid.
Oh,
you know,
Cujo!
kid- I mean, and
A
that's-
simple story, a simple concept. If you think about it, big happy dog, gets bitten by a rabid animal, a raccoon
Then
or
it's
something.
dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it's like this horrifying turns into this monstrous, horrifying creature.
That's how I wished every Benji movie would have been.
Now I liked Benji, so
course you
let's
did.
but and Benji was a much smaller dog. This is a big dog. It's a big Saint Bernard
Now,
dog.
I would argue, and I just recently saw the Cujo film because James, you told me to see
With
it.
D. Wallace.
Yeah, I like it.
D.
and
Wallace.
I liked it too. I actually liked it better than the novel.
I think it works better
I
as
think
a movie.
Cujo, the novel, is a short story.
Yeah, well, it works better as a movie.
Yes, I know I've not read the
definitely.
novel, but as a movie, I mean, yeah, it kind of works as a 90-minute movie. It's like a terror-filled situation. But it's a limited.
There's a lot of it. He can be long-winded. Not all of his novels need to be as long as they are. You know,
Right.
Needful Things. For one thing, Needful Things is sort of a retread of Salem's Lot as it is, and it's like twice as long. But the movie actually worked for me on its own merits.
Really? I never saw that movie.
Well, it's not a great movie, but it's still
Which one? I'm
better.
sorry?
Wait.
Needful Things.
Oh, I was still on Cujo.
It sounds exactly
Needful
like
Things.
We'll get back to that.
That sounds exactly though. When I have not seen the movie or read that book, but it sounds just like the Friday the 13th TV series.
I'm not
Which
familiar
the
with it,
Friday
but-
the 13th TV series had nothing to do with the Friday the 13th movies. It was this guy owned an antique
Yes.
shop and he made a deal with the devil to live forever or something. So all the objects, all the antiques in his shop were cursed, but they were all sold off to people. So when his nephew and his people inherit the shop, each episode is them have to retrieving the cursed object, and the cursed object does crazy twisted things with the people because they live out their fantasies. Whatever. I mean, it sounds exactly like that show.
their
And I think
greed
that show
over-
was before he wrote the book.
All right.
Sorry, the show sounds much more interesting than the movies. Actually.
Yeah, it was a kind of fun little
I'm not
show.
a Friday the 13th fan, by the way. I'm just going to put it
But
out
the Friday
there. 'cause I
13th, they had, had nothing to do with the Friday the 13th movies.
I'm referring to your old podcast. I'm just saying.
That's all right.
But yes, I'm just curious. It sounds like a ripoff of that TV
does.
show.
It does.
I mean, I don't know if it was, but
Yeah.
Really quick, getting back to Cujo. So this dog he's in this little area, and it's kind of on the outskirts of town. And there's this woman and her kid that are in this car that come to the house, and they're attacked by the dog. So they have to stay in the car, and it gets really hot, and they can't start up the car. And it's, to me, I remember my wife and we saw this, and we were just on pins and needles the whole time. How are you going to get out of this situation?
yeah. I mean, I thought even at times it was stretched a little bit, even as a movie. I thought, but I think it was pretty
I think
effective. though.
Dee Wallace really.
She's great. in it.
brings
Okay,
it home.
let me remind you, this was 1983, just a year after E.T., sir. So
What does that
What
do
is
with-
that?
what does
I
that
don't.
do with anything?
What does that mean?
What does that have to do
What
with
is that? What is the
anything?
point of that?
Because Sean likes things all
Hey, we'll
flashy
save that
now.
for our ET episode.
Because Sean likes things flashy and quick wit.
That's what he likes. He only likes
now.
flashy.
I'm just saying this is back in
You're
'83.
the-
Okay.
Can I just point out,
Yes.
before you jump and attack my good friend Shawn Sheridan, who can do no wrong in my eyes, you're the guy who is a big fan of spandex. Yeah, you heard me right, Constantine. He defended spandex on a number of occasions.
Okay, now look. Now, before you jump
There's
on
your
me.
modern horror.
No. See, because look. Let's just say we're in 2017. Okay, so spandex isn't a big thing now, but there was a time back in the 80s. Okay, back in the 80s when spandex was quite the thing. And Angel Flight's pants
for
and stuff.
assholes.
No. See, here's the thing. See, you kind of forgot the experiences that you.
Oh, no,
had.
I didn't forget.
No. You did. You're on like some reefer madness thing or something.
No.
That's what you were doing.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I was so whacked out on the wacky tobacco that I was sucked into the siren call of spandex.
Okay, well, look, we're getting off the topic here. Look,
Let's get back to Cujo.
How did this
now.
even start? I don't remember how we got to this.
All I'm saying is, look, there's a bunch of
Never insult Shawn Sheridan again.
everyone is
Fair game.
Fair game
In
here, my
Larry
friend.
Stoner's eyes.
For Mr. Percocet. So look, but there was a time. So there's Cujo. You had these films that were based on.
It was like hit after hit.
Yeah, it was hit after hit,
The
but-
Shining, Creep Show. Creep Show was one of the first ones he did, which was
What do you think of
couple
Creep Show?
stories, a couple stories based on his short stories, and then some original ones, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like Creepshow.
Okay, all right. Well,
I like the comic book too. I mean, I got the Bernie Wrightson art. I mean, when you start with that, you can't go wrong.
I've gone back and forth. With
I
that
go back
movie.
and forth on that one too.
I've been an issue. I've got an issue.
I actually had a problem with, and this is this more George Romero? You think?
Well,
but the style of we talked about this in
did
our
talk about
anthologies, but like the comic book
look, the
look
heart
that they tried to add to it,
the colors
pulled me right out of it. And I actually enjoy just story wise. Right. I kind of enjoy more Creepshow 2.
I have never seen Creepshow 2, so
Okay.
or 3.
get
I think
out.
there's a
Okay,
third one, too.
no.
I'm just admitting that here.
He's a Stephen King expert, so just keep your mouth shut for a moment.
I did some research. You know what they consider Creepshow 3? Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Yes, which is good.
Because
Actually.
there's
I like that.
right.
movie.
I've heard
Look,
that.
look. I'm not gonna say, hey, everything I've seen is like, oh, so great. I had it. Look, I like the style, unlike my
I've
friend.
I've come back
yes,
to appreciate
unlike my
it
friend
now.
across the aisle
But
here. I just know I'm talking. I'm talking.
sorry,
I'm
I'm sorry,
talking.
I'm sorry.
No. All I wanted to say was, but there was a segment. There was a segment that pulled me out, and that was King's segment. And it's like, what King, Mr. Stephen
the
King?
lonely death of
look,
Jordy
this
Verrill.
Mr. Stephen King. You're not an actor. look, I respect you as a writer, but when he started to go through, look, I hated that. It drove me nuts. I don't know what the.
Well, that was the comical.
So you
segment.
found it funny?
No,
I found it. I was insulted. I thought that was stupid.
I mean, it was.
So
it
you
was
thought
silly.
it was funny?
It was silly. Well,
So you
it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. I did. I went ha ha ha. Exactly.
Did you?
But I will say,
I laughed and laughed.
I do appreciate the very overly stylized stuff more now. I mean, I think I liked it at the time. Then I kind of like went back but it's very artificial looking. But that's. I mean, they were trying to recreate that EC Comics look.
And I'm saying
you know.
I liked the look. I liked the comic, and I liked everybody. It's just
I love the comic.
His segment. The funny thing, Sean, is now because to me his segment was so bad to me because of him. I'm sorry, Constantine. I know.
right.
I don't know how you feel about it, but it's like it was so bad. It kind of pulled me out of it, and it's like.
But did it ruin the movie for you? I mean, because all the other segments I liked.
Yeah, I did like the other segments. It's like. It's not my favorite.
What's the one where with Ted Danson?
Yeah, to Dancing Leslie Nielsen.
That's probably one of my favorite.
I like
ones
that one a
because
lot.
they it seemed like they eased off a little bit with some of those effects.
I like
something to tide you over.
Yeah, I like that one. I did not care for the cockroach one at all.
You didn't like that one?
Really?
I thought
E.G.
that
Marshall?
I thought that was really like the end was
No,
dumb.
Wait, what do you mean it was dumb?
It was because it was dumb.
So for listeners, there's this guy. He wants everything clean and neat and
E.G.
tidy.
Marshall.
Yeah, E.G. Marshall, who was known for doing things about 1776. Remember those commercials he used to do?
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
that's what we all know him from.
And then in this movie, he's this big businessman in this white area, and he wants everything sterile
He's a
and
germaphobe.
Yeah,
He's a
and all of a sudden,
germaphobe.
this little cockroach comes out. Spray that cockroach.
It doesn't
and-
go.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, okay.
And then all of a sudden, these cockroaches start coming out all over the place, and I love the end. I thought the end was cool.
The most effective story for me is the crate, and it's not
The crate is great. I do love the
Yeah,
crate.
because of
good.
the story. It's because of Fritz Weaver, Hal Holbrook,
And Adrian Barbeau.
No, that- I
and
love that.
the humor in
Fantastic.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
the
agree.
thing. It was humor.
Those are my
yeah.
two favorites.
Constantine?
You said you guys did an anthology.
Yeah.
episode?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so I haven't listened to that, but I will seek it out. I mean, I don't.
Even after being on our show.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big anthology fan.
Yeah,
Us
that's
too.
too. Yeah.
Whether it's we'll whoop the shows aside. I like Tales from the Dark Side, and obviously shows like Twilight Zone. I don't know.
Sure.
But I'm talking about like the movies, whether it's Asylum or House, Blood.
all the Amicus ones, we love
My
them.
favorite is Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. I mean, I think that
fantastic.
One of the best.
there is a little bit too much humor, I think, in Creep. It doesn't
I agree.
bother me. That was their approach.
It doesn't
Right.
bother you.
Oh, I'm saying I get that was their approach. I mean,
Right.
there was kind of a Tales from the Crypt television series, not the comics, but the
Right,
TV
right,
series,
yeah.
HBO.
sort of sense of humor to it.
Right,
but
right.
like for me, I know James, you said you don't like this movie, but I think Romero did better handling of King, in my estimation, with The Dark Half. I like the book and I like the movie, and I think that he actually did a pretty adept adaptation.
I do think it works much better as a movie.
Oh, okay.
Because the suspension of disbelief in that.
Well, it's a pretty out there concept.
So
you know.
wait, it's the Dark Half. This is the one. This is 1993. This is with Timothy Hutton, Academy Award winner.
Yes. And,
So it has to be good.
And I think I talked about this on a recent episode where the concept for me, it was really hard for me to buy it, that someone's pseudonym would come out of the grave to exact vengeance when
Right.
all the while this wasn't an actual human being. Although there is sort of the backstory that there was a twin that didn't survive.
Right.
But this twin never actually matured. So
in his brain, though, I mean, to me, again, I haven't read the book in 20 years,
But you
I mean,
read it.
I read it when it came out, yeah, and I my feeling, and when I see the film, if you believe in ghosts, I believe that is the
Right.
manifestation of the eyeball that the eyeball that grew out of his brain.
Yeah.
Could if that happened somehow,
Right.
there is a spirit force of George Stark that came to life at some point.
Does
And-
that help you, James?
it
But
does.
that's
It does.
just my-
But I would,
how I rationalize this.
Wow.
I would point
Nice
to
work.
to a concept that's really, really hard to sell that he did sell for me, which was in the novel Christine. And the reason that it worked for me in Christine,
Larry's heard of that.
No. I have the poster. I read the book.
you read the book, Larry?
I did.
Did you
I
like
did.
it?
My
did.
dad, that was probably like the last book my dad ever read was
Really?
seriously, was Christine.
Wow. No, he sells it for me because of the central relationship between Arnie and Dennis, the two boys in it, and how Dennis is kind of the jock and Arnie's the nerd, and Dennis is always kind of looking out for him. And there is a pathos there, and there is something identifiable about that. And the relationship between Arnie and Christine, the car, I mean, it's certainly central.
Yeah.
But what makes it work is that you have a much more believable and relatable relationship between the two boys. And that is the type of thing for me that King is great at, to help sell an unbelievable
preposterous
story.
concept.
Yeah.
That's why it works less as a movie.
Yes.
Because you don't get that slow build
Right.
of those two
Think
personalities.
about the movie
this is 1983. This was directed by John Carpenter, and a lot of people jump on this, but like I know James.
I like it. I like it.
Look,
I like it, but
I have a
it's
theory.
not scary.
No,
No.
you know what?
That's
You
the
know what?
thing.
I like
Okay,
it for the
Sean,
music. I like
Yes.
it for
The Carpenter
production
style.
design.
Yeah. But it's
Sean-
not a scary
No,
movie.
I'm going
No.
to throw something out at you.
Uh-oh.
Okay? No. I think that because there's a lot of cool stuff in
Yeah,
the
it's-
book that I wish was in the
Oh,
movie.
really? Okay.
I think Carpenter didn't have the money, or the money went a lot to the car. And also, if I don't know if you guys remember the preview, and I remember seeing the preview, and it started out by saying she's sleek, she's beautiful, and it had all these silhouette shots of curves and stuff, and you think it's a woman, then all of a sudden,
Right.
and then you hear it's a 1954 Plymouth Fury possessed by hell, and the audience laughed. And when that happened,
I just felt a sense of shame.
Yeah, but
The trailer made me get hard over a car.
Look, I like classic cars. Okay, I really like classic cars, and I thought the car looked great. I really liked the relationship that
It's kind of a fun movie, but it's like a
This is Keith Gordon, John Stockwell,
it's a slight film.
Alexander
like
Paul.
it's not, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
I mean, she's
Yeah, no,
young.
It never
she's-
really
fun,
gets
but-
too deep.
No,
It's very surface.
And you know what?
Yeah,
I'm not going to argue with you guys. I hear what you're saying, and Constantine, I'll get with you in a second. I hear what you're saying, but this is 1980.
We have a guest,
Okay, listen. It's 1983. I had just graduated from a high school. Okay, and so the film takes place in high school, and
Right,
so
sure.
I can't really say I was a jock. I wasn't necessarily the nerd with the.
You're definitely not a jock. Right.
Okay, look, but I did have a '66 Mustang, and
Okay,
I kind of
okay.
identified.
That's
I kind of
cool, that's
identified
cool.
with
So
Arnie.
you're like riding around in your spandex and your Mustang.
And my feather hair.
Your roller skates in the trunk, ready for.
See, the funny thing is, everything
for
that you say,
action.
I did have roller skates.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
See, here's the funny. See, everyone's laughing here. They don't realize how big that was back then. Everyone goes, "Oh, that's so stupid." But
It was stupid.
No, it wasn't stupid. There were roller boogie. Hello.
Yeah,
Come on.
I know.
That was really big.
What
People
the hell
were-
was wrong with you as a kid?
People were putting.
Did you have any sort of
they were
anger
putting,
or
listen,
angst?
they were putting glitter in their hair and wearing spandex and headbands and stuff. And
They were rebels.
yeah, well, I mean,
Look,
what
unless
did
you're in
you
the
do?
New York Dolls, I'm sorry.
Okay, look. The point that I'm trying to make is I see what you guys are saying about that movie. I'm not going to disagree with you, but it touched me. I did like that film.
I do like it
yeah,
too.
I don't dislike
I
it.
do
It's-
like it.
Okay, Constantine.
I like the film.
Okay, moving on.
It's not one I go back to that much.
No,
Right,
I
right.
mean, I'm with you.
when I whether it's a Stephen King film or it's a John Carpenter film,
Right.
and again, I think a lot of it, these movies end up being films that attract me for not just scenes but characters, and the characters who are playing these characters.
Yeah.
Right.
So when it's Shelley Duvall, she's interesting.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken as Johnny Smith is interesting.
Right.
Right.
Well, you know what really got me was, okay, so here you have this, you weren't really scared at Christine, but here you did Creepshow and Cujo and Dead Zone. There was a film that came out later on that I didn't realize was a Stephen King film, and that was Stand By Me from 1986, which directed by Rob Reiner.
Well, very
You
different
talked about
kind of-
kids,
Yeah.
and it was so real. I mean, I had friends that were similar to these friends, in this. And when something is as creepy as a kid, it's like, well, we heard that there was this dead body, this kid that was hit by a train, and it's their mission to go and check out where this kid got hit, and there you follow this journey. And it was such a great film, I thought. Oh, you're laughing. You're laughing at me.
The only part that I'm laughing at is the fact that where are the police? So it took a group of kids.
Okay, look, this this wasn't in San Francisco,
No,
sir,
I know, I'm just-
where a kid gets hit by a streetcar and it's like everyone sees it. This is out in rural,
I know.
like in
And no,
Maine someplace.
I love the movie. I would like
And the
to-
kids were all great.
I think
Kids are
we need
great.
to, because I feel like this is kind of a turning point for King, was different seasons.
Right.
Right.
Like when I read that book, I was blown away by that book because even in the stories that weren't overt horror, and I think there's only really one that's overt horror.
Yeah, the breathing method.
The breathing method. The other ones are such great psychological horror. Like those had such just a punch in the stomach effect. Every single one was great and a very different vibe than what Stephen King had brought us before. And like when Apt Pupil, oh my God, I mean, just amazing. And I once again, you were saying that, you got to have that director, you got to have that cast.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's Stand By Me.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean that movie changed everything. And I was, as you were talking about the kids, and it just made me think the parallel 1-2 punch, let's say, of having Stephen King and Steven Spielberg be. There's the filmmaker and then there's the writer. And sorry, it's all sort of in my head like funneling towards where we are right now, where Stranger Things is sort of the perfect like Amblin Stephen King horror movie. And is it of any kind of coincidence that people of our generation fall back on loving E.T. at the same time that we can love Cujo, and like we have our memories?
Yeah.
that
Right.
are,
It's that generation. Right.
so it's about young people either finding aliens or finding monsters or finding dead bodies, or I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, you brought up Stranger Things, and to me, what's interesting is that talk about a generation that really needs the talent of Stephen King, that we have to create a crappier carbon copy of Stephen King for young masses with Stranger Things. That like, here's something that we can show your kids that there's nothing new, there's nothing interesting. The only thing that you got going for that show is you got a really talented cast. Everything else is everything that I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
But because kids haven't seen any of that stuff now, or people are so nostalgic that they're like,
That's a
this
big
reminds me
thing,
of the
I think.
thing that I used to like.
But you see, that's not talent.
I think Stranger Things came out at just the right time. Yeah, it was just like it just hit that note.
sweet spot.
Yeah,
Some people feel that, some people have chastised me saying, "Oh, Larry, you like that film? Well, that film is really just a collection of other films from way back when." Then all of a sudden Stranger Things come out and they go, I hate that because they're just ripping off this and this and this. And I've pointed out to them, I said, look, Stranger Things, it's like what you said. You just said, if you watch it, it's like, oh, this reminds me of this. That reminds me of this. Yeah, Matt, that's right. That's nostalgia. There's homage in there. And it's like, I mean, I watched it with my 12-year-old daughter.
It's junk food. It's junk food.
You know what? It's a lot of fun. It's great. And yes, all the kids are great in it. I think they did a really great job.
The cast is what makes me watch that.
And you know what? I enjoyed it. I had fun. I had fun sitting there with my daughter and my daughter watching it, just being, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And actually, there is something that says, look, I'm a product of the '80s, although the kids aren't wearing spandex or anything like that. But give
it time.
But it's like it's really cool. I like you. I mean, Sean did a big thing. Well, I don't know why it takes place in the 80s. Well, it doesn't take place. It takes place in the 80s because it's nostalgic for the writers. And I liked seeing the jackets and the hats and everything that they wore. And I like that thing.
Look, what were those brothers? What are who made Stranger Things?
Yeah.
They hit on something. I will not begrudge anybody their success, and it's hitting a sweet spot for people of our generation and for younger generations. And so that's fine. But to me, I just get a little annoyed by, there's so many little low-budget films that I see on Netflix, and like, I'll go like, why isn't that the bigger thing? Sean turned me on to this thing on Sci-Fi, Channel Zero.
Channel Zero, Candle Cove, based on creepypasta.
All these, these creepypasta stories are like they're like internet fireside ghost stories.
Yeah,
created
urban legends on
like
the
urban
internet.
legends,
Yeah.
but they were actually created by people on the internet to seem like they're real, but they're not.
Right.
Okay.
And so what this series is doing on Sci-Fi, they're on the second series now,
Which is very bizarre now.
and I'm enjoying it. I love it.
I watched
Yeah.
a few episodes. It's bizarre.
But they hit a different creepypasta stories. That's what they call these things.
Yeah.
And so it has a lot of the same elements that Stranger Things has.
Yeah.
The kids, that almost nostalgic kind of feel, but they turn it on its ear.
and
they make it so creepy and weird and unusual and
Just
original.
different. Yeah.
And I want to tear my hair out because why isn't that show the popular thing? And why is the junk food show the one that is now exploding everywhere?
Well, this is great, and I would love to analyze it more on our Stranger Things episode, but tonight it's all about Stephen King.
Well, going back to different seasons, I want to touch upon Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, the first novella.
I didn't know that was a Stephen King.
See, that's like Stand By Me. It's one of those things. What didn't connect Stephen King to that?
Right.
No.
And yet, it's a marvelous drama, beautifully adapted by Frank Darabont.
Great film.
Now,
Great
Constantine, you worked on the DVD materials for that.
Yes, I was sadly not around during the making of that movie, but yeah, we did make a documentary and produce that. I think a couple versions of that film's release. So
awesome.
But yeah, it was fascinating to go back, and by that point we made it in maybe started in 1999, so only 5 years had passed, and we were still working on the Green Mile at the time. But being able to look back on that movie after only 5 years, I mean, it's hard to think back. 5 years ago, I think was that when the Avengers came out? From now, but at that point it was. A movie that bombs then ends up becoming like
it's so funny.
And 5 years later, everyone loves this movie.
Constantine, my wife and I remember when the previews came out, and I looked at my wife and I said, "We've got to see this." And the film came out, and I remember we had to go to a theater that we weren't used to. It wasn't playing at all the major theaters, and so we had to drive into Santa Cruz to go see it. And we were blown away. We thought the film was one of the greatest films we had ever seen. And we're like, what is it? Why don't people know about this? A lot of people blame the title,
What do you think?
About the title?
Like why that film
because
didn't
it is
hit.
one of the films that is shown on AMC constantly.
It's probably playing right now.
And you know what's on
TNT.
And or TNT. And the funny thing is constantly when I'm flicking through the channels and I come across it, and I sit and I watch it.
Yeah, me too.
It's got so many great characters. It's directed so well. The dialogue is fantastic. Everything is so great.
I'm thinking about every time that it is on, my mom will either call me or text me, Shawshank is on, or you got to watch Shawshank, it's on TNT. I mean, I don't know why, because you could say that there are a number of really good, heartwarming, well-made stories with characters that you end up caring about that nobody watches. But I think, fortunately, somebody somewhere decided to continuously show this movie because they must have liked it. And I do believe that it certainly didn't make gangbuster sales on videotape when it came out, but it was just being played over and over again on TV that people, that's how they saw it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
They want to see it again. And they
got this new life.
Yeah, it was that very strange scenario where it wasn't even home. It was partly home video, but it was being on TV.
Yeah, one of the cable stations like TBS or TNT would show it 24 hours straight.
Between that and Beastmaster.
I mean, we exaggerate. It doesn't play, but it's like they played it. It's a long movie.
It must have hit a demographic somewhere for someone in programming to say, a lot of people are watching this. We better keep playing it.
Right.
What's great about that movie is that what makes it so inexplicable for me of why it didn't catch the first time around is that it checks so many boxes of what a good movie is.
Yeah.
You've got the great cast, you've got the great director, and it's tension filled from the very beginning. Talk about a character you can root for.
Yeah. And if you've been living under a rock all this time, it takes place in the 40s. It starts out in the 40s, I would say, about this banker who's accused of a crime that he didn't commit, and he gets put into prison where he's going to spend the rest of his life in there.
Right.
And he's not
cut out for prison.
No, well, you say he's not cut out for prison, but not in the way that you think.
Right.
He kind of but
smart. He's very smart.
Because
he finds a way to survive.
And he befriends these certain characters who are lifelong criminals, who you grow to like and stuff. But it just goes through this life in prison, and it is just fascinating, and you're rooting for these people. And if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give anything away because it is terrific.
It is terrific.
But Constantine, when I saw the film, I did not read the book.
It's amazingly faithful.
Very faithful.
But the funny thing is, I had no idea where it was going to go. I had no idea, and where it went just blew my mind. And the funny thing is, I got kudos to Frank Darabont because I've heard this, how it's faithful to the book. Kudos to him for doing such a great job. Did he work with King at all?
No, I mean, what I know and what he's told me and what I've picked up is that he got the rights at that point. I think he was a dollar baby with originally with The Woman in the Room,
Right, from Night Shift.
Yeah, and he got the rights. I think he paid King $10.
Yeah,
originally.
Yeah,
but of course, if he sold it, he was going to get more.
Sure.
But everyone, when they read his adaptation, and it took him several years of like gestating the material, and then I think he ended up writing it in like 8 weeks, which is Frank's way. He ends up writing really fast when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
So he writes the script.
Yeah.
It gets around Hollywood, and everybody and their dog wants to be in it. Everyone from Tom Cruise to Paul Newman. I mean, every major actor in Hollywood. And I mean, again, at its core, and I think what Frank really touched upon and successfully translated both on the page and on the screen is it's a story about friendship. And if it wasn't about those two guys, and how one wanted to escape and the other one wanted to believe that there was something to believe in.
Yeah.
That movie would not be that successful. I mean, any prison films are there. I mean, again, it doesn't sound that, it's probably true that the Shawshank Redemption or the Shark Tank Redemption, whatever the nicknames that they everyone would call it, did not, attract an audience, or there was no female actress. And I mean, it's like Lawrence of Arabia, find a woman in there. Ain't going to happen.
No.
So really, it was the audience that somehow picked up on the friendship aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great story, great acting. I mean, everything about it deserves. I mean, everything from cinematography to Thomas Newman's incredible score, which is still available on La La Land Records CD. We just produced it last year, so please go out and try to get it.
Constantine, I have to tell you, it's probably one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. And I have to say, you mentioned Dollar Babies. We have a dollar baby here at the table.
Yes, we do.
James, I know you've told the story before, but
I don't know. What is that?
Can you tell us,
what does that
James?
mean?
Dollar baby is a term. Stephen King very generously kind of started this program for aspiring filmmakers that were interested in adapting his stories, usually short stories, by offering them the rights for $1, as long as these movies, once completed, were not sold commercially.
Okay.
Back when I was at NYU, I was inspired by Night Shift, and one of the stories that jumped out at me was The Lawnmower Man, which at that point had not been adapted. This was 1985.
Right.
Children of the Corn had already been adapted. And I was in a junior level class at NYU, and we were looking for a story. We couldn't come up with anything, and I just thought, well, let's just do a King story. And then Lawnmower Man jumped to mind. So I went ahead and directed it. Now, it's a student film. It's 12 minutes long. It was shot on Long Island. And it was maybe one of the hardest things I ever did. But we had, I had a core crew of about 5 students, friends. And we would do things like, stay up all night, and we would tape a cherry bomb to a lawnmower and push it through the hallway. We would do all these crazy things in the hottest summer in New York history. But we had really interesting, really professional actors, and then we weren't
really good. I've seen this, and it's very good.
Before.
Yeah.
We were graded based on the rushes because there wasn't enough time to finish the thing, but we got good grades. And then I was so happy with what we had that I had to finish it. So it wasn't until 2 years later that I finally found an editor and got the negative cut. This was 16 millimeter. And strictly by the virtue of it being a King adaptation, it's been written up in several different books.
You're in Wicca Goddamnpedia.
That's right.
Yeah. All the books on this table, by the way, include a mention of it.
Oh, wow.
nice.
How about that?
I'm impressed.
Well, it's
me too.
also a faithful adaptation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well, that's the
not
thing.
compared to the
When the
feature film.
Right. When the 1992 movie came out, King sued to have his name taken off of it because it had nothing to do with the story.
No.
Right.
And that helped my movie a lot because it gave it this little notoriety. Whoa, there is a faithful version.
Yeah.
It also helped that no one else did a version themselves. So
Right,
it's like
right.
the only faithful version.
That's right.
And one of the things that had inspired me about it was when I was really excited reading Night Shift, and then saw in Famous Monsters an article that said that Milton Subotsky was producing a movie called Terror by Daylight, an anthology film, which was going to include 3 stories from Night Shift, including Lawnmower Man. And I was thinking, how the hell are they going to film that? This was a couple of years before. But Subotsky's movie never came out.
Huh.
when he found out about my movie, I got a letter from him that I have here.
Oh my!
No, you brought the letter.
I found the letter.
Oh my God!
Dear Gary Gomez,
Amicus Productions Limited.
Oh my God! Now, what's the year on this?
May 23rd, 1989.
Oh my God!
Give it to
We'll get
Matt.
a photo of
Have
this.
him read it. Have him read it.
This is from Milton.
Milton himself.
Oh my God!
So here, imagine, listeners, Milton is- sends James Gonis.
Guy who's
this
made all these
letter.
amicus.
dear Jime, I was surprised to read in Castle Rock that you have made a film of the Lawnmower Man, since film rights to the story are owned by Amicus Productions. Damn you!
Wait, it says that?
No, just a
I
glitch.
think he had a British accent, by the way.
No. Just keep going.
I gave Ken Morgan permission to show your film at Horrorfest, and I am giving you permission to show it to prospective employers as an example of your work, but not publicly without specific permission from Amicus. I would like to see a copy of your student film of The Lawnmower Man, and also the adaptation of The Last Rung on the Ladder, which is my favorite Stephen King story. If you can make a video cassette on the British 625-line PAL system, please send that. What an asshole. Unbelievable. That is the funniest fucking thing ever.
That's awesome. That is awesome. man.
And if you could get some Royal Shakespearean actors.
It says that?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. If you
That's amazing, though, man. That's really cool.
if not, send what you have, and I'll find a machine on which to play it.
Wow.
I have a kinescope in my garage.
Wow.
I'll return the cassette after I've seen it. No, you never get that back, right? Cordially, Milton Subotsky. And he actually signed this.
That's
fucking amazing.
James. So James, my
There's
question.
my career as a filmmaker.
So
ended
so
there, yeah.
so
Pretty
so
awesome.
here's
I hope I did the letter justice.
Yes, you're perfect.
so here's my question then. So this letter says that you can't show this film publicly, because I thought, hey, it'd be cool if we could put it up on the internet, for
Yeah,
Monster
is it
Party.
available on, like,
but we
YouTube or
can't. We
something,
can't
or?
do that.
Someone has uploaded it on YouTube. I'm not. I haven't tried to do it myself, but someone else already did.
That's what we were watching.
Yeah, we were watching it before.
I gotta check this out.
So wait, if our listeners want to see the James Gonis Lawnmower Man film,
You can find it on YouTube. It's 12 minutes long, and it's look. I was like, I don't know, 20 years old. It's like you do something when you're 20. It's a student film. It's
Oh,
not.
sure, but
There's
it's-
things that make
hell, I'm
me-
going to put up my like things I did when I was 12.
Why
My
are
little
you
stop
hiding
motion-
your life?
Yeah, come on,
that's awesome.
Constantine, help me here.
No, this is really exciting. I the fact that he felt threatened by your movie there. That's pretty damn good. You got
really.
scared the shit out of Milton Subotsky.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe King was going to swipe the rights back and give them to you. I mean, that's what I
Yeah,
was reading
really.
between the lines.
I wonder if this is what brought down Amicus.
Yeah, really.
Well, I did send tape to King.
Oh, you did?
And I met when The Stand came out uncut. He did a signing at Tower Books, and I asked him what he thought of it, and he said he got a kick out of it, which was kind of him. And
That's awesome.
that was the extent of it.
Did you send something to Subotsky?
Once I took this letter out of storage and read it, I thought, holy shit, did I send him that tape? Because I don't remember sending him that
Probably
tape.
not. No.
I
He
hope
probably
I-
as soon as he sent that letter, he probably forgot all about it.
Well, I hope I sent him the tape. I probably did. I
You
don't
probably
think-
did. Knowing
but
you, I'm sure you did.
It also mentions another dollar baby called The Last Rung on the Ladder, which was made by a fellow student filmmaker who lived in New England named Jim Cole. And he's a mutual friend, Constantine, of ours. Last Rung on the Ladder is another night shift story. Nothing supernatural about it. It's about kids. And Jim did an incredibly sensitive job with it. And King actually mentioned that story in the preface to the trade paperback screenplay of, I think, The Green Mile.
Oh, okay.
But Jim has been a friend for like over 20 years, and we had that in common. But Stephen King book dealer, who we used to see at Star Trek conventions, connected us, and we've been friends ever since.
That's
I
awesome.
should thank Jim, because if thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
I
Jim.
miss you, Jim. He and I met on the set of The Green Mile, and it was because
Nice.
of Jim that he contacted you and you contacted me.
okay.
And
Awesome.
yeah. So
Well,
It's funny.
Stephen King.
Go ahead,
I
Sean.
was going to say, I want to talk about how the whole thing of Stephen King, his name being on certain movies and wanting his name off of certain movies. Like, I know that wasn't one of the first films that came out that Stephen King didn't want his name on was Children of the Corn, I think, right?
No.
Was it?
I thought he didn't want it. I think it ended up being on the film, but I thought he didn't want his name originally on it or something.
I remember him doing right when that movie was coming out. I remember him doing a story on like Good Morning, an interview on Good Morning America, where he was somewhat not necessarily shitting on it, but not necessarily promoting it either. But he said something very kind. He said, "This is made by filmmakers who will go on to do better things."
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah. Because that movie is, you watch that movie now, it's kind of weak sauce.
But it's iconic now.
It's an
But that's what's so weird, though. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
so is
why.
the Goonies.
Yeah. You watch. I'm telling you. I mean, it's like a TV movie. and
No,
the
it's
acting's
terrible.
pretty.
Yeah.
For a movie that takes place,
Yeah.
Centered around like scary,
Kids.
demonic. The kids are all
Kids.
bad though.
I
They're
agree.
bad actors.
They are bad actors.
I agree.
Yeah, it's weird, and I think that was also remade as a TV movie. I haven't seen the remake.
It remade it a
seven sequels.
Well, there's like a million
and yet-
sequels,
and none of them work.
Well-
and what's funny is that that's one of the scarier stories in Night Shift. And they just
Really?
can't
Yeah.
like you
Really?
never get
The idea
you
is
never
pretty
get the
scary.
menace of what's in the corn in any of those movies. It's all about the
he
kids.
who walks behind the rose.
Yeah.
right.
Look, I just want to throw this out, Sean. I mean, you guys are saying, "Well, I made 7 sequels." Think about it. This was not an expensive film. Okay,
It was a hit,
this is
though, I
considered a
think.
low budget film. Whether it was a modest hit, it was a hit enough to spawn all these other sequels.
Yeah,
and maybe
it's
it speaks
weird.
to a certain part of the country.
I
The
get-
Midwest.
Let me
Matt,
guess.
Like Matt said, if like
Your daughter liked it.
No, because I want my daughter to watch good stuff.
Thank
okay,
you. Thank you very
and look,
much.
I am one of these clowns who actually went to see that in the movie, and I was disappointed.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
was.
yeah, all right.
And
It was pretty-
but again, I don't remember seeing Stephen King's name on it. I don't remember. I was actually no,
No, it
Constantine,
was-
you're looking at me.
it was.
Oh no!
I'm just.
I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, this is one of the DVDs that I don't have in my collection, and there's probably a reason.
yeah, there you go.
I don't own Children of the
So
Corn.
It's just so forgettable.
and just for listeners who are curious, I mean, it's there's this couple.
I mean,
well, the first one.
Linda Hamilton's in it.
Linda
That's,
Hamilton,
you know,
yeah, I know.
she's
Peter
okay,
Hilton.
but it's like they don't.
So just really quickly, this couple, they're going through the Midwest. They're seeing all this, they're going through this lonely road, and they're surrounded by all this corn, and all of a sudden they come across this little scarecrow, which is actually there's a kid that's stuffed in it, and they actually.
Don't you wish you could do that sometimes?
They actually hit it. It's like, oh my gosh! Well, let's try to find where.
It's basically the kids have like killed all the adults in the town,
Yeah,
and
and-
they worship something in the cornfield.
and there's
it's
this
just
leader kid who did you buy for
No, the
one
kid
time?
was terrible.
No,
Which
but
I
it's
always
not
get the
really-
names confused. Is Malachi?
Malachi
is not,
was the older
no,
kid.
He's the older
yeah,
one.
yeah,
yeah,
but-
it was eyes.
Yeah, but it's like,
Isaac.
did you buy that kid was a kid? That's the thing that pissed me off.
Oh
No.
yeah, it was just
No, it was a
they're all
middle-aged
bad.
Woman.
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, it was the woman from Poltergeist.
No. See, this rumors get started. That's what they're gonna think. No, Constantine.
No, I'm pretty sure.
No,
I think Constantine will agree with me.
No. He doesn't remember the film. No, I'm just saying for our listeners, that is not the case. The woman in Poltergeist is not in Children of the
We
Corn.
know. We know.
I'm pretty sure she is.
No, she's not. See, Sean, what are we
Listeners,
doing?
so-
No,
trust me.
Listeners, do not trust
It
Matt.
is her.
It's Percocet talking.
I think you should
Larry, can I ask you
write to her.
Larry, what is the danger if some people were to think that
Because it's wrong, Sean. It's
What would
wrong.
happen to our
Sean,
society?
Okay.
No, Sean, you go, do you like giving out incorrect
We go through
information? Is that what you like? I'm ready to move
Larry.
on.
Larry.
Okay.
I'm
All
ready
right.
to move on. Constantine,
Larry.
save us.
I just want to go back to something that's I'm going to
Please.
rewind and sacrilege. Go
Please,
back to
God.
Stranger Things, actually. But
Oh,
no,
fuck.
I know
That's
I
not
know.
Stephen King.
No. Here's
No,
Do you
no.
have a point?
Yes,
I have
he
a
does.
point, and
Yes,
the
he
point
does.
is, Children of the Corn. You just said the unlikable cast. They're not good actors.
The corn's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
The Corn's good. Yeah,
Corn's
Linda Hamilton's
great.
fine.
Yeah, it's just fine.
For what she has. But the when you have the films that have very strong characters with strong acting behind them, those are the memorable ones. And it's not just because you've got a budget. I mean, I don't know how much. Look, Carrie didn't cost that much to make, and Stand By Me didn't cost that much.
How much does corn cost?
Well,
It's the location.
Somebody, but it's the movies we go back to are the ones with the really good acting and the really good characters.
Okay, and with that,
that's the only reason. You said before, I like Stranger Things because of the kids. And I think I like more of these films and more of these stories beyond. Oh, I like vampires. I like the characters. I like Ben.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Okay.
Mears, right?
Ben Mears.
Ben Mears.
Ben Mears.
I like Ben Mears as a character. I want to follow what he's going to do to stop Barlow. But then I also like the young kids that are in Salem's Lot, and I want to see what happens to them.
Lance Kerwin.
Right.
I was thinking of the two boys.
Oh,
that
okay.
floating in the wind.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Danny Glick.
Danny
Glick.
Glick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Danny
I
Glick?
can't remember the actor's name.
No,
They were
no.
very good. They were
So
good
Brad
kids.
Savage, one of them.
So like you, it's like I like it when you have great performances. You have a really great script, great performances. And we talked about one on our Psychopath episode. This is from 1990, also directed by Rob Reiner. Misery.
Oh, right.
And the funny thing is, I can't say enough great stuff about this film. And I think part of it is, when James had mentioned like a lot of these things in these films or these stories, King takes from his life. Well, here you have a writer who has fans everywhere he goes. He writes these stories, okay, and then all of a sudden he's got this last treatment for this last story of this one particular character, and he's driving in the snow, and all of a sudden, gets in a crash, and he gets rescued by this woman, and in this area that seems like there aren't people around, but she's got this big house, and so she kind of rescues him, and she tells him, "I am your number one fan. Oh my gosh, this is amazing!"
And she's a nurse.
Yeah,
And
she's
so
a nurse. How lucky!
Yeah, but she's his number one fan.
Yeah.
and
So that
all the perils that come with that.
Yes.
Enthusiastic to the point of psychosis.
Yeah, and here you have a movie that it's really. I mean, there are a few other smaller characters, but it's really just two. You have Kathy.
It could be a play.
It could.
Yeah.
Well, it has been.
Right.
It has been a play.
Yeah.
James Caan, who plays the writer Paul Sheldon, and Kathy Bates, who plays Annie Wilkes.
Annie Wilkes. And on stage, Bruce Willis, I think, played Paul Sheldon.
Is that right? Really?
cool.
Wow.
And so we talked about this on our Psychopath episode, but it is such for listeners. If you haven't seen this film, it is a great film. There is one kind of graphic moment in it, but it's this great story of how this guy who's got these two broken legs, who's in this place, and he's kind of captured by this woman who is psychotic, basically. And then when she finds out that in this story that he read that her favorite character gets killed off, and she flips out, literally flips out.
Yeah.
And she says, "It can't end this way. It can't end this way." And so basically to kind of keep alive or to keep himself from getting, he's got to get well, he's got to keep writing this story.
He's got to write a new novel that resurrects this character.
To keep himself alive, basically.
Again, that's such a great concept. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It must be his worst nightmare.
Well, it's also a little bit cautionary because, I mean, I considered myself an Uber King fan for a long time, and I was like, oh, shit.
Really?
I don't
Okay.
know.
Whoa.
No,
James,
maybe.
really?
Well, I mean,
So
it's cautionary. I mean,
you see yourself in Annie Wilkes.
No. Well, there's the potential. There's the potential to be that zealous about something that you get passionate about and that you go over the edge. It's cautionary that way.
Look, I'm sure we can all understand. Look, like when you saw Jeffrey Combs for the first time, you got all excited or whatever, and Jeffrey Combs, I don't know, but well, maybe it was me that was acting that way.
Yeah, you're always describing your experience, not mine.
But it's like once they get to know us, they see that we're harmless or whatever, and come on, and a few cocktails, it helps things. And wouldn't you say?
Once I have the talk with them before the show,
right.
you go down a little easier.
Here, this is very random, but I just have to share this. So, did you guys see Nevermore, the Jeffrey Combs?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Probably one of the greatest one-man shows
So
ever.
fantastic.
Yeah.
This is Jeffrey Combs as Edgar Allan Poe. One-man show.
So I saw this, I don't know, 7-8 years ago in Hollywood.
Sure.
And-
Steve Allen.
Yeah.
Steve Allen
Allen
Theater.
Theater, yeah.
Okay. And who was sitting next to me in the theater? Next to me, Kathy Bates.
Oh,
Random.
wow.
You just mentioned to him like, oh, that's
Wow.
really odd. That
That's pretty awesome.
she was sitting right next to me.
She
I'm
like it?
Pretty darn sure it was her. Yeah, I mean, she did. I was on the edge. So when Combs jumped off or
Yeah.
fell off, I'm like, okay,
And then she leaned over to you and said, "I'm his number one fan."
That thought crossed my mind.
Did she grab your thigh?
What?
Did she grab your thigh
No,
during it?
I
Because I heard that, she's all hands.
Hey!
Yeah, I heard this. okay?
No. This is come on.
Yeah,
But it was fascinating. It was good. It was great freaking show.
Well, the point that we're trying to make is, as this great writer So he writes this great story, and in the hands of Rob Reiner, an amazing, great actors,
Also,
terrific movie.
And not that at that time too, the kind of typical role you would see James Caan in, and he's really good in it. You know, like he really. I mean, it's like it's odd casting, but it works. You know,
Sort of
He
makes you
is
wish-
really good.
sort
It's
of
like
make-
the last big role that he did, right?
yeah.
Kind of makes me wish that he did more.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So
Maybe he didn't need to.
No,
It's true.
I'd also like to point out, since we're kind of in this zone now, that I mean, Rob Reiner's company was called or is called Castle Rock.
right?
Yeah.
And Castle Rock Entertainment essentially made like 8 or 9 Stephen King films. I mean, it was I wouldn't say it became a factory, but I mean they did a lot of things from, you know, Seinfeld to the Best in Shows, and they've done a lot of great films. But yeah, I mean they did Needful Things.
They
did I think they did Dreamcatcher. They did The Green Mile. They did Shawshank. They did Misery. Dolores Claiborne, good movie.
Oh, you know, I think Dolores Claiborne.
Yeah.
I
That's
have not seen that film.
never
you know,
seen that.
you know what, guys? I would suggest you see that one because I think it's one of those ones. It's maybe it's just not as well known. But what's cool about it is again, you got Kathy Bates in it.
Is it supernatural?
No, no, it is not. And that's one of the things I like about it. Imagine, if you will, this woman who's like she's a reporter, and she and her mom, they're kind of estranged, okay? Anyway, she finds out that her mom is getting charged with murder because she was a maid for this wealthy elderly woman. And so she comes to find out, Mom, what's the deal? And the mom has to kind of explain the stories to what happened. Christopher Plummer plays the detective. Christopher Plummer
Always good.
He's terrific. He thinks that she murdered her husband, but he can't prove it. And then he thinks that she murdered this woman that she works for, but he's trying to get if I can get you to talk or whatever. It's a really cool story.
It feels a little Hitchcockian.
Actually,
more
Christine,
psychological.
but it's Kathy Bates is great. You've got another really great cast. But it's
Jennifer
not,
Jason Leigh.
And I guess it's one of those, Matt. It's one of those films. It's really not that well known. I don't
Definitely,
think.
yeah,
I don't
it's
think
its
it
own.
did that well.
It's
and
well reviewed.
and maybe because it doesn't necessarily have any supernatural stuff in it. And it doesn't really have any incredibly graphic stuff in it,
Yeah.
like, you know, hobbling or something. It doesn't have anything like
Right.
that. But it's a really cool story. And
I'll
Kathy
watch it.
Bates is great.
Yeah, I'll watch this.
It's one of those where you don't automatically think Stephen. You
No.
don't automatically think Stephen King, and you don't automatically think of that movie in the top 25. I mean, you because it doesn't have the monsters,
Right. Wouldn't you say that, like, when King started out, let's say starting out with Carrie, this woman who has telekinesis, can move things, and people are getting killed, to Stand By Me, Dolores Claiborne, you know, and Shawshank Redemption. He evolves. He changes.
Well, it's
Oh, yeah.
also just pure versatility. I mean, the movies that have been made have been all so different.
I mean, Gerald's
you know?
Game just came out like last week, and I'm hearing great stuff about it. But
Right,
I mean, I
right.
don't even think for a while that was one of those movies. That was one of those novels where you weren't even sure if it would ever get adapted.
Yeah.
Right.
And apparently, it's been adapted really well from what I'm.
I don't know that one either. What is that? What's the basis of that one?
I have to admit, this is one book I've not read.
I have not read it either, but I can give you the gist of it. It was actually written as a companion piece to Dolores Claiborne, and then as time went on, it got more separated as a different story.
Sexy games.
Yeah.
Games.
That's the book I wrote.
It's about a lawyer who has this sex game with his wife where he handcuffs her to a bed, and then he drops dead of a heart attack, and she's handcuffed to the bed, and she's got a
hate it
dead
when that
body.
happens.
Oh.
Okay.
And they're not in the city; they're in the middle of nowhere. And
Oh, that's a good premise.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where it starts.
I think there's some clips on YouTube's where
YouTubes?
YouTube. Okay, come on, Demon Booze. Okay, cut me some slack,
the
Mr.
YouTubes.
Cut me some slack, Mr. Percocet. Okay, so
Yeah,
there's
hey.
a thing where they're
You should try
filming
some.
people. Shut up. Okay, they're filming people watching certain sequences in the film, and they're catching their reactions. So
Are
that
they
alone.
alone in the theater?
Yeah, no. They're not. They're at home watching it at a monitor.
Now, one of my favorite stories from different seasons,
Yeah,
without a doubt, is Apt Pupil.
At Pupil.
It's awesome.
Now, Apt Pupil,
Great cast.
but that is a movie that even with that cast, you know, you've got
Ian
Brad-
McKellen,
Ian Mc-
Brad
Ian
Ian
Renfro.
McKellen.
McKellen. I mean, you're not going to get much better than that.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, that was a really unique example of a Stephen King film that, even though it seemed like everything was done right, it didn't carry the emotional punch that story did. There's something about that story.
It's really dark.
That's very dark, and they couldn't go to that place that they needed to go to in the film to bring out that darkness, the perversity of that whole scenario.
Well, for our listeners, Apt Pupil is about...
It is about, there is a kid who finds out, in a nutshell, he finds out that there is a Nazi war criminal living in his neighborhood.
And he's an all-American crew cut, apple pie.
The kid.
But he becomes darkly fascinated
But
by
he's
the
fascinated by
Nazi
very dark things.
Yeah.
And so what he does, he finds out that this guy's living in his neighborhood, and he basically blackmails him and says, I will tell people about you if you don't tell me, and there's a term he uses, oogie or something like that, or the
gushy stuff.
Gushy stuff. I want you to tell me the gushy stuff about being a Nazi. So he's forcing this guy who, now, even though this guy is a Nazi, you could tell like he really kind of wants to put all this stuff behind him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And does not want to relive this. But this kid makes him do that. To the point where he keeps upping the ante. He keeps getting him to do all these things that he really doesn't want to do, to the point where he actually brings him a Nazi uniform and makes him put this thing on, and, you know, goose step and all the Nazi things that you want from your Nazi stooge.
But it backfires, because at that point things turn around, and the Nazi actually starts to own it again. And,
the Nazi kind of like gets into it again.
Yeah.
The Nazi comes out, and that story, even though it's a novella, it seems like it's the perfect length. The time that it takes from where this kid starts to that turn where the Nazi comes out and then changes the game. It's pitch perfect, that story all the way through. And I don't feel the film captures that.
Well, where the film really screwed up is the ending, because it was a complete cop-out.
Yeah.
And I don't, maybe we shouldn't go into it and spoil it, but it was a complete cop-out. And Constantine, you've seen the movie. Do you agree the ending not satisfying?
Yeah, I mean...
wow, you're just shrugging. You're like...
No. You're talking about some really dark stuff.
Yeah.
And you wonder, did the filmmakers feel like they just couldn't...
They couldn't
go there. It's
They
Nazis and it's kids, and it's a weird relationship between this man and the young teenager. I mean,
I remember King being interviewed. He was always fascinated by, I think it was Starkweather, who went on top of a tower with a rifle and started shooting people.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what Apt Pupil builds to. And it's almost as if King was sort of trying to reconstruct what
brings a person to that point.
Yeah. And so it's kind of amusing on he muses on that kind of a theory. And that is a ballsy ending. And he cuts very, very quick to that. It ends abruptly in the story. The movie ends completely differently, and it's awful.
Yeah.
Now, there was an attempt to adapt this, I want to say back in the late 80s, early 90s, with Ricky Schroeder.
Really?
And Nicole Williamson was going to play Dussander the Nazi.
Really?
And King was quoted as saying that he saw it, and that sucker was really good, quote unquote.
Really?
And
he saw it. What do you mean? That there
he saw rushes.
That
But
they filmed
it was filmed?
It was filmed. They didn't have the financing somehow to finish it.
Wow.
I did not know this.
There are outtakes of this movie with these actors, and for all we know, it's a better adaptation what they completed than what was finally done by
Bryan Singer.
Bryan Singer, right?
And of course, the movie became infamous for the Bryan Singer got embroiled in this whole lawsuit because he filmed some scenes with like young boys taking showers, whatever, and it was supposed like they didn't have to be naked, or it was a whole thing. I think it was eventually all dropped or something, but the movie almost became more famous for that, than the film itself.
The story of Apt Pupil, as it is, the Stephen King story, if you're going to make that as a film, you have to not pull back from the horror.
Right.
You have to look it straight in the eye and go with it. The minute you flinch, it's done.
And part of the horror in it comes from Todd Bowden, the boy character, being all so cheerful and so into the stuff, and he comes off as sort of innocent. Well, it's kind of a naive fascination with it.
A
There's a
naive,
weird,
a naive fascination, like many other current Nazis that are in.
I was going to say, this feels very timely now.
Yeah.
But there was almost a Dennis the Menace, Mr.
Yes.
Wilson connection.
Exactly.
Mr. Wilson, you put on these Nazi uniform?
And in the movie, another problem is that Brad Renfro, who plays Todd from the beginning, is brooding and like Nicholson in The Shining. It's
That's
like,
true.
He's
They make
halfway
him-
there to begin with.
That's true.
Look,
That's true.
look, we laugh, but there's nothing laughable about Nazis. I just
Have you seen the producers?
I'm just, well,
And I mean the original, the Mel Brooks
yes,
one.
Okay,
The Fuhrer was a great dancer.
okay. Look, except for that movie, yes.
The Fuhrer was a great painter. He could paint a house 2 coats.
All right, at pupil. All right, that's great. Moving on.
Constantine, there were 2 other Frank Darabont features adaptations that you worked on. One of them was The Mist.
Was the Mist.
We got
talk
into
about
a big
not-
Didn't have an ending.
We got
Talk
to
about
a,
not flinching, though, from
yes,
horror and the ending.
We got to a
Going
huge,
the opposite way.
Yeah.
huge argument about this movie.
We have a major disagreement about the ending.
Almost
And I know
fist
now this was
flying
no, we won't say what happens, but this is an ending that
could say the
Darabont decided to do. Right, it was not in the original novel that they did it for the movie, right? Correct, James?
Right. The original novella ends with the note of hope after surviving this ordeal. This character and his son escape the supermarket, go out on the road, and he's hopeful that they will survive. And that's where it ends. It's ambiguous.
Right.
The movie does not end that way.
No, but let's give it a little gist of what the
But for
premise
listeners,
is.
who haven't seen it,
Well, there is a top secret scientific project happening in, again, rural Maine, and it's
Everything's happening in Maine.
It's like Tokyo has Godzilla and Maine has Stephen King.
it brings about this mysterious fog that creeps over this big lake, and the fog brings with it these monsters that come out of like a 1950s sci-fi movie, which King has acknowledged that inspired The Mist.
I thought they were more Lovecraftian, but maybe I'm thinking of the movie more than the story.
Well, they are that as well. They're very like insect-like, and they've got tentacles, and they trap this group of people in a supermarket. And these monsters have the capability with their webs in slicing people and disemboweling them. It's horrific stuff.
It's like just an onslaught. Yeah. And again, we talk about Stranger Things. Stranger Things is basically a version of The Mist.
Yeah.
Well,
It's The Mist with one monster instead of a bunch of monsters. I'm just saying, it is.
There's no mist in it though.
No, but it's the same. concept.
there's kind of a mist.
Top secret experiment.
Yes,
they
yes,
release
but-
a creature
Oh,
into
okay,
the town.
yeah,
and
but there's
there it
no
is.
mist in it, so it's just like
Well, there's
mist.
once you get
I
to
see
the
your
opposite
logic,
world,
yes,
it's a
okay.
little misty.
All right,
Yeah.
get back to it,
It's good.
Jim.
Then there's the Mist, the show, but
Oh yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
see
Not
that.
go there.
let's not go there.
Play Misty for me. Well, for one thing, what was your experience on working on that project?
Oh, I thought we had a great time. I mean, we made it in 7 weeks. So
Wow.
I can acknowledge. I mean, I think I can say this because I'm sure Frank has said it before. But I mean, everyone was very keen on making that movie, but they were afraid of the ending that he wrote. The ending that King himself has acknowledged that if he had thought about he had discovered this ending, or if it had come to him, that would have been the ending of the book.
He said that.
He has gone on record to say
Stephen
that.
King said that, James.
I think it's very kind of him to say that. I know that he probably loves and appreciates Frank Darabont's talent.
It's a very bleak ending. It's a very horrific, bleak ending. But I mean,
My favorite part of the movie, actually.
That's the thing, because I thought actually a lot of the movie is a little heavy-handed with the acting, and I think
Acting and dialogue is a little heavy.
it really is. But I still appreciate the movie. It is a movie that depends a lot on CGI, and some of the CGI works fine. Some of it, it's CGI, but for the most part, you kind of go with it. But it's the ending that is the one thing in the whole movie to me that packed a punch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well, yeah, I'll say this much, because I mean it's not about you don't go in and apologize for a movie for how much it cost or how many weeks we had to make it or who we could afford to pay, but I mean this was a story that Frank was he had the rights for a very long time, and it was only I think after he came up with the ending that he knew he wanted to make it, and it was based on his feelings about the way society was at that time. We're talking in the mid 2000s,
Right.
and the political environment,
Yeah.
and he had some very specific things he wanted to say and how he felt. So when people literally said, we want to make this movie, change the ending, we'll give you as much money as you want, change the ending. And he just said no. He wanted to make the movie.
Wow.
He wanted to make this movie. He actually wanted to make it in black and white, which is part of the reason there is a black and white version of it.
I heard about that.
But everyone wanted it to be in color.
Sure.
So he's
Of
like,
course.
okay, we'll make it in color. But I mean, that movie we shot in, I believe the shooting was like 7 weeks.
Right.
And I believe the budget was like $17.5 million.
Wow.
And I know for a fact, I remember one producer I heard this from Frank. One producer said, I'll give you $30 million right now if you just change the ending.
You're
And
kidding.
Frank's like, no, the ending is my ending.
And so that was
love it or hate it,
Wow.
and there was no other ending filmed, right?
there was no
it.
other ending. That was
Okay.
it.
Wow.
And it was one of those scenarios where unless you had, the cast didn't have the ending until the day we actually had
Right.
it.
No.
Right.
It was
Why did I
like
not
they
know
they
that?
kept the ending from the cast. It was, I knew the ending, but
My mind just went.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It was-
I mean,
it was
it's-
tough to yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
to go there,
It's
yeah.
effective though. It's like I said, it's like not pulling any punches, and it's like that's true horror to me.
Well,
It's
well, let me
but like,
come-
you take away all the monsters. You know what I mean? It's like all the crazy Lovecraftian crazy monster, but that's the true horror.
Yeah.
Is that ending?
The way I equate it is to when I watched Alien 3 for the first time. In Aliens, you've got Ripley and Newt, and plus the Michael Biehn character, and they are surviving against these impossible odds and escaping. Alien 3 opens, and Michael Bihn's dead, Newt is dead, Ripley's still around, and I'm thinking, oh no, really? They did all of that to survive this ordeal, and now, no, they're dead.
See, now I agree with you about that.
I do too, James.
But I would argue that I liked them way more than I liked what's his face and his family. So by the time that they ended up, reaching their fate,
Right.
I was like, wow, because I was kind of with you. There were parts in that film that are, and I'm pointing to Sean, how that it goes up and down when it comes to things being a little too over dramatic.
Yeah, it's a little
melodramatic
yeah,
at
it's
times.
melodramatic.
Yeah, and that by having that in it, it took it to a whole nother realm. Because I was done kind of with that movie a little bit before they got out of the supermarket.
Yeah, I agree.
And so when they get out of the supermarket, and then you've got this very dark dystopian ending, it was such a shock, and it was so refreshing because it had been a while since I'd seen a horror movie be a horror movie. Not everybody survives. It's a downbeat ending, and I wanted to almost stand up and cheer. I was like, yes,
Wow.
somebody did not pull a punch.
Right, that's what it. Yeah.
Well, it's a disagreement. We'll
Yeah,
never come to
but
terms.
it's worth seeing definitely. Like it's like I said,
I agree.
I mean, I have some reservations about some aspects of it, but it's still. A
I like
strong
it more
film.
over time too. I have to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, I agree.
Larry, what did you think?
Well, I was actually going to move on to another one,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
actually
What
I'm with you guys though, and
Okay, all right.
and you guys I think are a little bit harsh on the melodrama. I mean, some people here like the melodrama. I like the emotion, so I think maybe you guys
It didn't make me check out or anything like
yeah.
that. I'm just saying that if I were armchair quarterback here,
Right.
I would say play that a little less, play it a little more straight, play it a little
Right.
bit more like a straight drama as opposed to this. I felt like it was a little bit heavy-handed.
Right.
Well, moving on to another Frank Darabont adaptation, The Green Mile.
Which and I love that one.
Yeah.
Again,
Wonderful.
talk about
That's a good one.
great cast.
A great companion piece to Shawshank, another period prison story.
But with with some kind of fantasy supernatural
and
elements.
actually and much more successful. My understanding, because I think part of it is it is a great movie, but also I think Tom Hanks. I mean, you had a big star,
Hanks, yeah.
Right.
And
That had to have helped.
I mean, and it's such. And I was so happy. I was happy that Darabont. I felt like he kind of got the accolades that maybe he didn't get on Shawshank, and also it's just such a great film.
And it's a great novel as well. I was kind of getting a little bit, frankly, disenchanted with a lot of what the King that I was reading. Some novels, like I'd mentioned, Needful Things, it had taken me a while to get back into a King novel. And then A Green Mile was released as a serial, in serialized form, 5 different chapters, and I was completely immersed in it. And this is before I even heard they were making a movie out of it.
So The Green Mile was in 1999.
Yeah.
And for listeners, if you haven't seen it, it's another prison film that takes place on what you would, it's like death row. And Tom Hanks plays like the head dude on the head guard on the death row. And then he has a bunch of guys there that work under him. And working the death row area, it takes a certain kind of mentality to work there, you know?
They develop a certain amount of cynicism.
Yeah. And there is a particular inmate that is brought in who seems to be, he's this big dude, but he seems to be a bit of a simpleton guy. He's not very bright, kind of slow.
John Coffey.
Yeah.
And he is black. And this is in a period where,
In the 20s.
In the 20s. And even though it is revealed that, without giving too much away, that he is innocent, the strikes are still very much against him back at the time.
Right.
And there's very little that can happen in the course of the story, supernatural or not, that can help him.
Right.
Despite the best efforts of the Tom Hanks character.
But what they learn about this guy is he has this unusual power, unusual quality.
Yes.
And this is where the supernatural thing comes in.
Right. And it's extremely powerful. And the book is equally powerful. And it's a very faithful adaptation. What were your experiences on that one?
I mean, I had experiences in working in the business, internships and things, but this was my first right out of college experience. And I have to say that working on something that big and that prestigious with the professionals and the cast and the crew really changed the direction of not just my life, but also the my attitude towards, I guess, filmmaking, because I saw it at its peak. I mean, like,
right,
I interned for Roger Corman. I'm not saying that there's a difference between Roger Corman and Frank Darabont, but I wrote a book about Roger Corman, so I will plug that book, Roger Corman
absolutely.
Interviews. So my admiration for Corman is huge. But I will say that, when you are able to see the best doing the best and having the resources to make something that I think everybody at the time knew had the potential to be great. I mean,
Right.
this was, everybody said this was the script that, all around, again, much like Shawshank, they'll sign on before reading the screenplay. It was that exciting to be a part of that. And it was a 2-year process.
Oh.
I mean, we shot all of, I don't know, I think it was June through December of '98. Then we shot the following summer for the wraparound opening.
Right.
So it was a, for me, I was like, movies take 2 years to shoot. I mean, that's not Lord of the Rings.
Not 2 weeks, like Roger Corman.
But I'll say, I mean, it was an eye-opening experience that, radically sort of set a high bar. Something that I won't forget. So, and all the friendships and as we're talking about it, I'm missing some of the people that I worked with.
Like Tom Hanks.
Well, hey Tom, how are you?
He's listening.
Tom and but Michael Clark Duncan and some of the other
Yeah.
folks that are no longer here. But I was hired to make a documentary about the film in 1997 when there was that was the year that DVDs debuted, but nobody knew what to do with anything in the world of home entertainment and behind the scenes. So for whatever reason, Frank hired me to shoot every day for months on end, and I shot 150 hours worth of footage.
Wow. Gosh.
I wasn't even shooting officially the what we call the EPK now, but it ended up, yes, I produced various versions of a documentary. I produced various versions of the DVD and the Blu-ray over time. And the film that ultimately was released a couple years ago, when we finally, I think this was on the 15th anniversary edition, I finally was able to sit down and spend about, I think I had 5 months to edit this documentary. And
Gosh.
my recut called Walking the Mile, which is now available on the Blu-ray, was a sort of a retrospective look back, completely verite on set, because again, between now and or when I shot that in 97 or 98 to today, there's probably 50,000 makings of every movie imaginable that don't necessarily need to be, you know, or have any real craft or
the seventh Children of the Corn movie probably has a 3-hour documentary on it.
And I've done a good number of them, but I think
hey, you got to work.
Yeah, you got to work, which is what we'll talk about after this. But but the Green Mile was, for a Stephen King fan like myself, it was like heaven, you know.
Right.
I mean, literally, we were, I'm in heaven when John Coffey's singing that song.
Right.
So it was a great experience, and my relationship with Frank kind of grew from there. Actually, my relationship started when I invited him and John Carpenter to USC to do a double screening of The Thing and Shawshank Redemption, moderated by then my mentor Forey Ackerman. So it was a really fascinating experience, and this all comes back because I was telling you I had some stories about Forey, but at that point I was still pretty much in touch with Forey. I called him and I said, we want you to come to set. And I went and picked him up, and he spent a day on set with Frank sitting right by the monitor. And
That's
it was
awesome.
cool because
That's
we all. Frank's a little older than me, and I'm my first issue of Famous Monsters sadly was the last issue of Famous Monsters, as I was telling you earlier. So to bring Forey onto the set was special.
That's
and
awesome.
Stephen
That's
King came to the set. We celebrated his birthday on the set. Watch my documentary, Walking the Mile. It's
all
right, Walking the Mile.
You got it.
Awesome.
So,
I'm writing that down.
Yes. With that in mind, can I bring out my little?
yeah.
Yes.
Wait, you brought something to show
I
us?
brought some fun stuff.
And we will of course
some
put photos of
Just
these
imagine,
things.
listeners, what Constantine
What
is
do I have in
grabbing
my
right now.
box of goodies?
Play that record of what you brought.
Is it Mr. Jingles?
I'll tell you the jingle story after this. This is actually the cross
Wow.
that was hanging on Michael Jeter's cell, which was the one thing that I wanted as a prop from the set.
Wow.
Literally I don't know who did it, but people were tearing down the set and stealing things
Oh, geez.
as soon as that whole set was wrapped. Someone actually stole Tom Hanks's desk that weighed probably 400 pounds.
The desk?
The desk. They came in the next morning after they were tearing down the
my
set,
gosh.
and the desk was gone.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, this I had asked, so you can, I don't know if you want to look at that.
That's cool.
awesome.
Oh, that's
That's
neat.
a cool
Awesome.
little item.
Beautiful crucifix.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
So these are little props from. This is
Is that Mr. Jingles?
this was actually Doug Hutchison, who played Percy, gave everybody a little.
I love Doug Hutchison.
Little mouse trap. Little tiny
God.
props that were hanging around the set.
That's great.
Hold on.
Oh, that's priceless.
These were Michael Clark Duncan's hands.
Oh, my gosh.
Again, I can't actually remember what these were used for, but they were, I think, made for special effects or something when Michael was doing a test and they didn't want to actually, they cast his hands, and these are Michael Duncan's hands.
That is so cool.
What do you
You
use
walk
them?
away with a lot of cool stuff on
What
it.
do you use them for now?
Back scratchers? That is so.
That is awesome,
Wow.
Constantine.
This is a very special thing, which was just sent to me about 3 months ago from the prop master of the movie, my friend Maureen Farley. She sent me John Coffey's actual shackles from the set. She's been saving these for 15 years so. Well, actually, it's almost 20 years now. And she was cleaning things out and said, I felt like you should have these. So,
And you're married?
I am married.
Is that
But these
called role
these
playing,
were
I'm just saying.
It's called Constantine's game.
nice one, Sheridan?
Nobody knows what goes on in my room.
That is so cool.
amazing.
Now,
That's great.
The coolest thing I have, and this is a very small bit of it because I've kept a little bit. This is an actual piece of the Green Mile. Which, when the movie was being made, I actually asked, especially when they were taking things down, to cut up and give. I asked the people to give me part of the actual linoleum.
Right.
And what I ended up doing, I actually had a piece that was mounted. I had everybody sign it.
Right.
Nobody else thought of this, but that was my. I was.
No, that's
crazy
great.
fan.
That's
great, yeah.
Stephen King actually signed my piece of the Green Mile.
man.
But I had a good number of pieces that I ended up cutting up for friends of mine, and I gave them away as Christmas gifts.
That's awesome.
So I think there are probably about 20 pieces of the Green Mile floating around the
And
United
the
States.
fact that you're giving this one to us. So sweet.
Actually,
is
would
so
you guys
cool.
like it?
Of course we'd like it.
Wow.
But we don't want to take your last
No,
piece of green
no.
mile.
I have one more piece at home, so
Oh my god.
there you go. I can. I will Green Mile. You all,
Constantine.
everybody
Guess
likes
here.
Constantine. Hey! thank you very
Guess who's coming back on the show?
You all
so
like the
much,
movie
sir.
too, so that's very
Yes.
No,
very
it's
kind of you to
it's a
say.
great movie. Obviously,
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
It's
Yeah.
called The Green Mile
It's
because the
amazing.
floor
Oh
is
my God,
green.
that's
Right.
and
awesome.
yes,
It's like having a piece of the yellow brick road.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's the
exactly.
next
Yeah.
best thing.
That is real. I will tell you that there have been people that have actually they know that I have this, and I've given some people pieces. I don't have very many. So a few years ago,
You already want it back, don't you?
no. That's yours. You can cut it into fours now.
We can cut that into four.
So if you watch my documentary that's on the Blu-ray, I had this idea to recreate the set of the Green Mile, and rather than having some sort of graphic, which we tend to do, I wanted to actually recreate the set.
Right.
And I wanted to have a mouse play Mr. Jingles. Mr. Jingles. And so I had befriended the people who, Boone Nar was the name of the mouse trainer. Mm-hmm. I contacted his company up in Valencia, and he had since retired, but he had sold it to some folks up there who were carrying on the tradition. Uh-huh. And I said, look, I'm interested in training some mice to recreate the set of the Green Mile, and we want to do this title sequence where the mice will walk through underneath, and if you see the sequence,
yeah.
you'll see.
Sure, yeah.
But we did it all very practically, and so we had to recreate So the mice, they agreed to do it.
Okay.
They were more or less fascinated because, you know what? They still had their mice that they trained for films are the descendants of the original Mr. Jingles. So, yeah, and there were 24 original Mr. Jingles anyway.
Oh my God.
So we ended up having a few mice
Like
come
the
out.
Olsen twins.
They spent weeks training them to walk underneath a door, and this company that I hired, Breakwater Films, produced and created the set, which we ended up shooting, but. To find the linoleum, I said we need this exact piece of. I don't want a copy. It's got to look like this came right out of the movie set.
Yeah.
And so it had turned out that the company that actually makes linoleum, this linoleum, does not exist anymore. And they had I think they had to actually order this linoleum. The remaining stock was in Japan or something. I mean, I don't know the full details, but it took weeks to get this order in to recreate what was this little stretch of set that was from here to your Monster Party sign, and literally it took hours to get this mice to there were a few of them, and they'd stop and they'd run around,
Sure,
because it was a very practical title sequence sketched on the floor. So anyway, it was fun to do, and we recreated part of the past.
That's awesome.
Oh, that is so great.
That is
Fantastic,
so
man.
great.
Yeah, the very last thing I have is this is from The Mist, a fake food house.
Wow, that's awesome.
Kind of advertisement.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
so
can you can
cool.
sort of see grand opening calamari.
That's
you
cool.
can pass it around.
Shot of that.
That is so cool.
Wow.
There's Bill Sadler, who is
Oh, yeah,
Fresh
William
Cuts,
Sadler.
Jim has some meat for you. So
That's
The
awesome.
calamari is great.
Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
great.
I guess since James is not a big fan, he probably wants to rip it apart.
He just wants to change the ending of it.
Well, thank you so
awesome.
much
That
for
is
bringing that.
so
That is
cool.
so
That's cool,
neat.
man.
That is
That's
awesome.
I can't give you this one. Sorry.
No,
No,
okay.
we're not thinking
What?
it.
Well,
Can we have one of Michael Clark Duncan's hands?
no, that is so great.
And Michael was a really special man.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Yeah, he was so fantastic in that movie.
Yeah,
Perfect casting.
Yeah.
It was.
Heard nothing but great things about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was John Coffey. So, and I will say there were other actors up for that role, and there's some stories that I know that others don't know, the type of effort that he put into this, the hard work and the humanity that he never lost for one moment. So,
And you can't
right.
really think of anybody else.
Oh, no.
Once you see his
He became
performance,
that. He just
Yeah.
became that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
so
Well, The Green Mile is such a great film. Another great Stephen King story from 1999. But Stephen King is, he wrote
he's alive and well.
Well, he wrote a story a while back in the 80s, and there was a TV movie, but there's this new film that came out, and it's just taken America by storm. And we're talking about in 2017, the new film It. It.
Huge hit.
it is big.
it is huge.
And this is directed by Andy Muschietti.
Muschietti,
Muschietti. And it's it's such a great. I'm such a huge fan of this, and the story really it's about a group of kids that all have. I guess there's certain things that they're all afraid of, and the film kind of starts out by a little brother of one of the main characters is going outside in the rain.
His brother has made him a little paper boat
to play outside. And everything seems so fine and fun, and he's playing with a little boat, and he gets upset. It goes down a sewer. And he goes down to retrieve it, and what appears is this really horrific-looking, well, not so horrific, but this strange-looking clown.
I think that the evil clown thing has been overdone to the point where it's not scary anymore until I saw that Pennywise. And,
it's funny. I actually have a theory, guys. This film has been so successful. It's made up to date like over $600 something million. I mean, it's the biggest money making rated R film to come out in September ever. But I'm wondering if you guys remember back in 2016, people were seeing like people wearing creepy clown masks.
Yes, yeah.
And my next door neighbor or neighbor across the street, a little boy, he was so obsessed with it, he wanted to be a creepy clown for Halloween last year. This was last year, and there was this whole big wave of creepy clown stuff. It kind of fell away a little bit, but now it's kind of come back because it seems like this Pennywise is like the ultimate creepy clown.
Well, you had that clown that was in American Horror Story, which was so, in my opinion, so over the top,
so overdone,
and so just ramming the evil clown thing down your throat.
Yeah,
and then you've got this recent incarnation of Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård.
Yes,
and his portrayal. It's almost like the clown as a child. There's initially this kind of sort of almost a meek quality about the clown when you're initially meeting him. Mm-hmm. And along the way of the story, this thing becomes more and more horrific.
Right.
But initially you could see like this is the thing that draws a kid in.
Yeah.
Because initially he does not seem all that scary. He tries to be your friend.
Exactly. Right. So basically it takes place in the town of Derry, and so this little kid is basically pulled in, and it's a very horrific...
we don't want to tell too much about this story.
No, but one by one, kids in the town start disappearing, leaving behind like bloody remains or like a shoe or something like that. But there's this place called the Barrens. It's like a little small town.
Yeah.
And there's like a quarry area. And there's this group of kids.
And they're all kind of misfits.
Well, yeah, and they're kind of united by all these horrifying and strange encounters with
this clown.
This evil clown.
But entity.
But they all have, the weird thing is they all have these different fears. And it's almost like this clown or this entity, whatever it is, kind of preys upon these little kids,
able to get into your head,
into your head,
and manifest that fear.
And it, to me, we kind of talked a little bit about it on a previous show, but I just thought this film was just great. I thought the kids were just terrific.
I do love the kids.
Dialogue was great. The kids were great.
The kids' dialogue I really enjoyed as well.
And I found it to be really creepy, well done, and I'm not surprised that it's doing so well. And the funny thing is, I didn't know. I mean, I knew that there was, like, it's a two-parter. It's really, you talk about the kid's story.
Right.
But I wasn't sure that they were going to continue on unless the film was successful.
Right.
I'm not sure how part 2 is going to go, because...
Won't it be them as adults now?
Yeah.
Well, no, I realize that, but I mean that I wonder if it will have the same emotional impact as Chapter 1 does, because I remember the TV movie version, and I remember the kid part being the stronger part of that story than the adults coming back and trying to reckon with Pennywise.
And as much as you got to love Tim Curry, his Pennywise had this sort of Brooklyn accent. And
well, he was still pretty creepy, though.
You know, the funny thing about that is...
I thought that was rubbish, that last version.
But you know what's weird is people... The thing that people come away with is everyone talks about Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown from the TV series, or the mini series, I should say. And now for this current one, I think it's fair to say, yes, everyone's going off about Skarsgård, but they're also saying that the kids are great. You have one of the kids who was in the
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. That's Finn Wolfhard. He's from Stranger Things. He plays the character Richie, and he's the one that hates clowns. And he's the kid. He talks a lot. He's the big talker.
He has a flair for comedy.
Yeah.
It is truly a gift.
But then you also have Jaden Lieberer. He plays Bill. He's the kid that stutters. You've got Jeremy Ray Taylor. He's that little chunky kid who plays Ben.
Probably
great.
my second favorite kid.
Second favorite. Sophia Lillis, who plays Beverly. And I just think she is just wonderful.
Yes, yeah. It's a great cast.
Chosen Jacobs, Jack Dylan Grazer. These are all these kids are just so great.
Yeah.
And you when you look at something like this and you see the performances from the kids, you know that they really took their time in trying to find these great kids.
And now, what did your involvement with the film is? You are doing a documentary?
Well, okay, so I produced the Blu-ray, which will be coming out in the near future.
I hope it's soon, man.
I honestly don't know when. I mean,
well, it's not going to be 3 years from now.
No.
Relatively soon.
I'm sure. I produced this for Warner Home Entertainment. It was great to work on a movie that I felt, in all fairness, The Stand is probably my favorite Stephen King book.
Okay.
It was, I said, the first full book that I read.
Right.
Night Shift was first, and then this. I have a deep love of this book, and I really like the TV movie, right? So, and I think as much as everyone likes Pennywise, I really like John Ritter. I mean, I really like Annette O'Toole. I mean, I
from
think
the TV, from the TV.
Yeah, I like
Richard Thomas,
the kids. I mean,
Dennis Christopher.
Yeah, that's a good film. And everybody, when they talk about this movie, it's interesting that the filmmakers and the cast refer back to, when I was really scared when I saw that Pennywise then. In my estimation, I mean, I had high hopes, but it's amazing and fulfilling for me to been able to be a part of a film that, I came in pretty late in the game because I was not on set, unfortunately, on this one. I would love to have been, but when I saw that first cut, or actually when I saw some of the dailies or some of the material on set, I thought they've got something special here.
Right.
It seemed to be pretty clear to me. But you never know until you see the final thing.
Right.
And so seeing that film, actually pretty earlier cut, I think of it, I was just stunned that I could proudly say, I'm working on another Stephen King film that I think I'm actually going to love.
Right.
So,
one of the things about Pennywise I thought that was really cool, too, with the Tim Curry, the clown outfit was more like, at least it seemed like it's a contemporary clown outfit, whereas Skarsgård in this current version seems like it's an older, antique-looking clown outfit, which says something about when you see pictures of some kind of clown character in the past. Yeah. So to me, that kind of makes sense. And another thing is, and I know that there's been some publicity about Skarsgård just gives such a great, creepy performance. One of his, I guess, his eyes, he has this ability to make one of his eyes go slightly askew. So, and you're looking at it, go, is that CGI? Is that, and it just looks a bit off.
I'll say that when I saw the movie, I thought, they've maybe added some, even his lip.
Yeah, and his lip.
And so, in I won't give too much away here, but with my documentary, one of them, we do go into a little exploration of, or he talks about, his lip, and he does it right there on camera, and you're like, wow, because I did ask Andy, I said, is that all? Was that CGI? I mean, he said, no, that was his, and he just had this ability to, move his face.
And that's why we still need actors.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
need
that's
actors,
why, like a computer program wouldn't think of that.
And that's the thing is,
wouldn't be able to play it off the way a real actor can.
And to me, I think Skarsgård is best in that movie when he's just being the creepy clown and not turning into some kind of monstrous teeth-filled creature. I mean,
I actually didn't mind a teeth-filled creature.
I think it was effective once you see it, but once you see it about 5 times, it just gets a little old. I mean, I still think there's some CGI stuff that just didn't work. Because CGI is not scary.
Here's the thing.
And when he's being the charming clown, trying to bring in the kids and convince the kids to come with him, that's creepy. It's much like the same director's film Mama, I thought, which started out really good, but then it eventually ended up into this kind of like fantasy CGI stuff that just took you out of the picture.
I would agree with that.
And it's like I really liked it, but I think at times it was trying too hard, and there's not really much subtlety in the movie at all, and it's just like bang bang on your head constantly. And I know that the idea is that it's like taking your fears from your mind, so it's kind of like a little bit of everything but the kitchen sink kind of thrown at you. But some of the big shock scares were too much, I thought, and not scary. like for instance, I think I don't know how it was in the book, but like I thought was it called the Neibolt house? What's the house?
Yeah, the Neibolt house.
Neibolt house. When you see that house,
Yeah.
the art directed house is like suddenly it's the Munsters house.
Okay.
It's like you see the regular block of the street, and then you turn to that house, and it's like the most overdone haunted house thing that you've ever seen. Now, I will say that my wife made a suggestion that is interesting. Maybe I don't know if this is the intention of the filmmakers or not.
You guys should see other people.
No. But like she was saying, like, well, the story is kind of from the little kid's point of view, so everything is kind of exaggerated, maybe.
Yes, that's how I saw it.
Because even the parents were kind of like caricatured, over the top characters to me, so everything is exaggerated and over the top. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's what the filmmakers were intending. But I still thought it was like after a while, when Pennywise is turning into all these different insect creatures and things at the end with his arms, and that's not scary to me. When he's goading a little kid from the sewer grate, that's fucking scary.
Okay,
Well,
let me.
I need to say something. Here.
Okay.
Because I want to compare.
I'm holding myself back.
Well,
here.
because we've got the miniseries,
Yeah.
which to me, I agree with you. I thought the actors in it.
You agree with Constantine?
I did. I liked the actors, and I actually, even for his Brooklyn accent, I did enjoy Tim Curry.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like that movie is so plotting.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it gives you what I felt was, when I was trying to read it, the dead space. It was actually being pretty faithful to the novel because it was recreating all that dead space. And the filmmaking, once again, I felt was very flat. And
That might have been also the budget too.
It might have been limited by because of television.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fine. It could be it's a victim of when it was made.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
But that still doesn't make it enjoyable for me. And that's why when I saw this new version, I'm telling you, that very first scene in the film
Yeah.
really grabs me. And I
Yeah.
go, oh my God, this is great. And I'm telling you, I was with this film. I want to say right off the bat here that I do like it.
Yeah.
I do too.
I
Yeah,
do
I'm not-
enjoy
yeah.
it, but I got to a place where I think Sean is hitting on, where I felt like they were now throwing so many scare moments at me that it became numbing. Like I needed some downtime. Pick and choose those scare moments when they're one after the other, and everything is, Pennywise is turning into the creature, and that I got to a place where I stopped caring. And then by the time we get to the place where all the people are floating around in his lair in the sewers, then I was like, well, what is happening? And I got to that place in my head, and I hate to say this, where I was like, okay, let's wrap it up.
Okay. I just have to say now you guys, I don't know for our listeners, but Matt and Sean, these guys, they see tons and tons of movies, okay? And they're like movie specialists. They know everything about all these effects, and they've seen just
Remember the Gnome Mobile?
Yeah,
that was
see,
good.
the Gnome Mobile,
right?
that brought up. Here's the funny thing, Sean. You say you're like a wise old Yoda guy that's been watching all these old movies. Let me tell you something. When my wife and I went to see the movie, okay, we sat down and we were like all excited, and the theater started to get packed, and sitting behind us, these teenagers that were like 16, 17 years old, a bunch of it was like 6 or 7 boys, okay, and my wife and I are sitting there, and they're starting to, like, before the movie starts, they're all and my wife goes, I'm about ready to turn it around and tell them to shut up. I said, honey,
Millennials.
and I said, honey, look, just be quiet, we don't want to cause a problem, let's just get with it. Sean, right from the very beginning, I thought these kids are going to be annoying right from the very beginning, when something happens to Georgie, these kids were riveted, and they shut up, and they didn't make a peep through the entire movie.
Sure.
But how is that a review, though?
Shut up. You say, oh, you didn't like this jump thing or all this action stuff. We loved it. We didn't know if something happens again. I was on the edge of my seat, buddy. I didn't trust the film. I didn't know there's going to be something else coming out at you. Something else coming out at you.
So was everything, even like the
Yes,
CGI
yes.
woman out of the painting, was that scary to you?
Yes, that scared
Really?
us. Yeah, well, look, you're Mr. Yoda guy. Yes.
Yoda
And
guy.
I'm just saying that you're wise. You've seen a ton of you were like, oh, I
Taste you have.
Yeah, I'm just saying that for me and my wife. And look, I've seen a lot of films, Sean. Maybe
I know
not as
you
many
have.
as you.
Yeah,
Constantine,
you're-
back me up here.
Larry,
I like-
welcome to your opinion. I mean,
But the idea that, like, 7 kids behind you means it's a good movie. I don't even understand what the hell you're talking
it's like
about.
We were all riveted. We were like stunned.
great.
We were like, great.
You
And
have a
yes.
lot. You have a lot in common with a group of 17-year-olds.
Yes,
Fantastic.
because I'm young at heart.
Okay,
and I
and we're
I'm-
old.
Yes,
We're
you're
years.
old and crusty, and you're like I don't care
Yeah,
anymore.
these is like-
I'm gonna sit in my swill here.
Right.
I'm gonna
Maybe I just appreciate good filmmaking.
There was good filmmaking, Sean.
And I would
Larry, I
like-
did not say that. I didn't like the movie. I liked the movie, and the movie really was trying. It had its heart in the right
Trying, it
place.
succeeded.
I
And
was-
you know how it
tried too
succeeded?
hard
It's made it
sometimes.
over $600 million.
What the fuck does that
What does
have
that
to
mean?
do with anything, Larry?
Because it's
So you might as well
Once
work
again,
for a
yeah.
might as well work for a
An
fucking
accountant.
studio. We've said
Yeah.
this before.
It doesn't matter
but
how much
apparently you are
fucking
so
money the movie
You're
has
right.
made.
You're right. Yeah, because I want my films to make money, not like you. You guys want to do.
You're
I want
so swayed by public opinion.
And
like, do you
awards
have
and
opinions
box
of your
No, of
own?
course, Matt. I liked it. Constantine, help me out here. Would you?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, The Stephen King expert says he likes it.
We
What does that
liked it.
mean?
We
Yeah,
liked it
we
too.
liked
but
it
like,
too.
So
but
you guys
it's-
you are being so critical. That's what you do.
We are being
you're saying
no,
it's
yeah.
you're saying it's a good film, and you're just putting in your critical moment there.
Yes, I think
That's
we
what
are.
we do. Exactly.
Yeah, I think there were moments where there
wanna
were
hear
James?
James.
All right, James, go ahead. Go ahead,
No,
James.
I enjoyed the movie more than I enjoyed the book. To me, the same problems you had with the movie are problems I frankly had with the book. I thought that, and I've said this before on the show, I wanted more parameters. I felt like if Pennywise could just come out at any random moment and these things could just happen,
Right.
then there's not that much suspense, and it took me out of it. But that was my problem with the book, and with a 1,300 page book, it's harder to get through when you've got problems like that with credibility. In a movie that's 2.5 hours, for me it wasn't as difficult to get through. I enjoyed it more.
Arguably, to me, the most effective scene in that movie is that first scene with the
sure.
kid.
Oh,
And
sure, yeah.
that is a perfect scene.
I
and
agree.
Everything else doesn't match up to that.
I wouldn't
it's-
say.
and
I would argue with you that there's some great moments in that.
Yeah,
I
no.
like it when Pennywise comes off the movie screen.
That's awesome.
I think that's
awesome.
great.
And that
But we
that
need
is a big
breathing-
special effect moment, but it's great.
We need
Yeah.
breathing time in between that. And I didn't understand at all the whole thing of like with the bathrooms covered in blood and we have to clean it up. Why would you clean that up? Why go call the cops. There's blood all over the bathroom. Whose blood is it?
Well, and also, is it really there? Or is it imaginary?
Yeah, I didn't. There's, but I don't
Yeah, I
know
wasn't
if that's
clear
a
about
part.
that.
Was that in the Stephen King?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
It
in the
was
book, yeah.
okay.
But I'll say my piece now.
Yeah,
please.
So-
yeah. Let's
You are the guest.
let's let the guest talk.
No. And it's just because when I started this, I decided I'm going to reread the book again, and it's not an easy thing to say I'm going to read a 1,200 page book, and it did take a lot of time in
Yeah.
between everything else in my life I'm dealing with. But I wanted to reread it again before watching the film, but before the final version came, so I could see. I mean, I had read the script. I knew what they were going to do. But in my head, I wanted to try to remember, much like the kids in the book, like how can I remember how complicated this story is? And, one of the first reactions I had when I heard they were going to probably split it into, or it's going to be the kids first and then the adults. In my head, the purist in me was like, "Wait a minute! It's got to be adult." It's so fascinating the time change, and again, I was not thinking about the adaptation process as much as in that initial moment. I was thinking, is that the right thing to do for the book?
Right.
And then you end up reading the script and you realize, well, this is pretty good, considering how much they actually had to work with, and what do you choose to add, keep. For the most part, I mean, it's very faithful. They made some changes. Some people don't like the fact that they updated it to 1985, and I thought that was a really good move. You have the book, if you want that. I mean, actually, the TV movie, which I'd like to point out, I mean, it launched this wave of Stephen King, because there hadn't been a
that
Stephen
was the
King.
first.
It was
well,
like
after-
Salem's
before
Lot,
Salem's Lot,
and then
right.
boom, and then it's like every other month was like a Stephen King movie,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
or a miniseries.
Yeah.
But I just thought the greatest challenge that they had was how do we tell the story and how do we keep the characters? And there are a lot of characters.
There are, yeah.
And it's only 2 hours. I mean, it's not even 2.5. I mean, you could have made it longer. You could have done other things. But I was really impressed that everything that I thought I really liked about that book, the best parts came through. It was a recognizable film. When Stephen King gave his thumbs up and vocalized it, whether it was via Twitter or in interviews, that wasn't just, the comment you said before, I can see they have potential. No, I mean, I think he actually really liked the film. By the way, I just kind of noticed the balloon back there. That's a very nice touch. just now I noticed the balloon.
It wasn't there when we started.
No, it's been here the whole time.
But I think
thanks for ruining it.
It's like it's what I've said from when we started this conversation. This is one of those adaptations where you have great characters and a great cast, and you're hooked by them from the moment they start talking, and that opening sequence is pretty
chilling,
spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
It is the book. So whether or not they go through the ritual of Chud or anything quite yet, or they're saving stuff for the next movie, or quite honestly, I think the budget was like $30 million. Again, they didn't have the budget that I'm pretty sure they're going to get more money next time around.
Yeah.
This is my guess, but when you have a successful film, they're probably going to be able to do whatever they want.
Right.
Because
Which, it's a danger too, though. Hopefully. They could.
Well, it could be both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Right.
I think that the filmmakers are going to be smart. I think they are.
And look what they did. I mean,
exactly.
They figured out how to make it work with. I'm not going to say they had nothing.
No.
But this is a film with relative unknowns. I mean, I think
Which is a smart way to go, though.
Yes. And I'm happy they split it up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because I was worried. There was a point in the movie I didn't know that they had split it up when I saw it.
Right.
And so I was getting antsy at a point where I was like, oh my God, we got this whole them as adults now to go. And when it ended when it did, I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But even that, it's not a clean break. I mean, that movie, the book, especially at the end, it's just like this, just all weaves right to the end. And how do you pull it apart? And so I'm sure they have a plan. It's quite possible it's already been written. I don't know. But to see what they had to deal with and how really quickly things came together to make a film that turned out to be this widely appreciated by people that I'm pretty sure didn't go out and read that book.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
it's just interesting that it just came out at the right time, like it just blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
And for whatever problems that I have with this
whatever
movie,
reservations, I still like the movie.
I would without a doubt recommend people
it's
to
worth
go
seeing.
see it.
Yeah.
Because I did enjoy it. I really did. And it's one of those things too. I mean, and this could almost be a salute to the filmmakers. The times that I was enjoying it and fully enthralled with it, the moments that took me out of it, it upset me because it was working so well in a previous moment that I'd be like, oh.
There's a lot of really good stuff in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff.
I am really looking forward to when the Blu-ray does come out because I can't wait to see what you did on the documentary. I'm like really excited.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I will just say one of our sponsors, Creature Feature, just held an event at their store where they actually had Tom Woodruff, who wasn't in the film, but a big monster guy here in town, and a few other guys. They did a sampling of how to do Pennywise makeup, and they
awesome.
filmed it. It's on YouTube now.
That's awesome.
So it's really, really cool. You can check that on the Creature Features website.
It's going to be a big Halloween costume this year, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'm going to be the Mangler.
Now, look, okay, so some of us liked it more than others. I mean, we've mentioned some great movies, but not every Stephen King film.
Well, there's definitely some. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. One of Stephen King has said one of the ones he did not like, least favorite of adaptations of his was 1984's Firestarter.
Drew Barrymore,
which is just a
well. He was pretty vocal before the movie came out about how much he loved the screenplay.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which I think was written by Stanley Mann.
But then when the movie
because it was
came
so
out.
faithful, but just the virtue of it being faithful didn't mean it was going to be a good movie.
Right.
I don't think it's that great of a book, frankly, myself. I mean, it's okay. I remember reading it, and I was still in my heyday of love for Stephen King, and so there's the great plot, dialogue, Stephen King stuff that he does that kept me with it. But overall, it's not a memorable book for me.
Let me ask you just a question generally when you talk about King, because everyone here has read some of his work. So I've read Firestarter probably when I was in high school. I haven't read it since. So I know I've coming back to it having not read. I mean, I've read it. This is probably my third time. But it was, again, not an easy. It's not like I don't want to come back to it, but it's an effort to say I'm going to commit to this story.
Well, it's like 1,000
when I've not read Gerald's game. Come on, Constantine. So like you choose what you want, and it is like going back to an old friend. So
Yeah.
when you do like going back to movies or cartoons you used to like watching,
Right.
Have you returned to things? How often do you return to Stephen King works? And when you do, are you surprised at what you find? And have they matured along with you?
Yeah, good question. I just reread Apt Pupil. I'm rereading the Bachman books. I'm on Rage right now, which I hadn't read since they were first published. And I look forward to rereading Christine. I've reread Salem's Lot twice. I've reread The
Yeah,
Stand
me too.
3 times. And I look forward to rereading it again. But I won't return to certain ones. I will not return to Firestarter. I won't return to even really good ones like Misery.
I go back to Night Shift again and again
Yeah.
and again. I've read that maybe 5-6 times.
Wow.
I love those stories.
I mean, I reread Salem's Lot because I was working with Toby last year, which again was an honor, especially since he passed. And I had produced the DVD for Poltergeist, which is its own story, because he ended up not, along with everybody else, not being in it. You can infer what you want out of that one. No, yeah.
Okay.
And I told him, I said I was, when we were walking out to the car, I said, I'm really sorry because I was supposed to produce, or I did produce Poltergeist, and I'm sorry you backed out on me. But, things happen. But I just really definitely enjoyed Salem's Lot is in the top 10. I mean, that's my opinion, but like it was such an easy choice to go back and say, I want to reread that book.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I have a little story. We haven't talked much about The Stand, but I feel it was the book that made me a King fan, and I feel so close to it. And one of my favorite characters is Tom Cullen. And I won't go too much into the plot, but in the Mick Garris miniseries, he's played by Bill Fagerbakke, who is this tall, blonde actor. He was in Coach, the Craig T. Nelson sitcom. And in the novel, there's a character named Julie Lowry, who is a really nasty young woman, and she taunts Tom Cullen. And Tom is kind of a simple guy, not too sharp, and she's really nasty to him. Anyway, about 10 years after the Stand miniseries came out, I was invited to the premiere of a movie called The Almost Guys. It was an independent film with Robert Culp, never made theatrical distribution. But the girl who played Julie Lowry, the actress, her name was Shawnee Smith. She was in this movie. So I'm at the premiere, and I see Bill Fagerbakke out in the lobby, and he's congratulating Shawnee Smith. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's Tom Cullen congratulating Julie Lowry. They stayed friends since they worked on that miniseries 10 years before. And that's almost like, and I was probably the only person in the lobby who appreciated what he was seeing.
You gotta be cruel to be kind.
But it was like a little Stan moment come to life for me. So
That's
I
cool.
wanted to share that. I
Wow.
think there might be some listeners who appreciate
That's
that
great.
story.
My favorite character in that movie is Harold Lauder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A little,
Or in the novel.
little miscast in the movie.
A lot of the pimples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
But
I'm waiting for the definitive version of that
Yeah.
novel.
I've always said I like what Mick Garris. I mean, that particular adaptation. No, I've said to Mick Garris a few times how much I appreciated his use of "Don't Dream It's Over" by Crowded House. I think I remember watching that, and I think we were on a road trip or something, and I got to stay home in the hotel room to watch it because I'm like, I can't leave the room because the Stand's coming on. Right. And that sequence was really riveting, and he took a lot of pride. He still does, I guess, to say like he picked that song, and as most directors do, but such a wise choice. Anyway,
and the fact that ABC paid for the rights for that song,
yeah.
I was like
Right,
pleasantly
right.
surprised.
And I'm not a giant fan of that miniseries, but I will give him credit for that's a tough one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
a really, really tough one. And I give him credit for at least sticking to, the major points of that story and doing his best.
Yeah.
Considering that it's a TV budget for
Right.
getting that thing on.
There are a lot of things I actually love talk about casting. Okay, Jamie Sheridan, not the perfect Randall Flagg, but
Strange choice.
Yeah,
there. Yeah, he didn't really work for me.
Now in The Dark Tower, having Matthew McConaughey play Flagg, that's perfect. And there was some talk of him being Flagg in a feature version of The Stand. But Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, both being in the movie, I don't think they had any scenes together. Ray Walston is Glenn Bateman. I loved that. I like Gary Sinise as Stu. I wasn't crazy about Molly Ringwald as Fran, but it's okay, you know.
Molly Ringwald.
She
Okay,
wasn't.
that is just gibberish. What you just
She
said.
an
It
Academy
doesn't
Award
mean
winner?
anything.
You know what? She's not, but
Oh,
you know,
okay.
there's some people here really like Molly Ringwald.
She was
I
just
do
fine.
actually.
I used to wait on lines for movies back when I was in college with friends. We used to wait for hours sometime on lines for
Sure.
opening night. And what would we do? We would make lists of our favorite movies and also make dream casting lists for The Stand because we had all read it. We were all into it.
Right.
So, you know, these things.
So who's Larry? Who's your dream?
Yeah.
You know, Larry Underwood, I always sort of connected Jim Morrison. And of course,
Jim
couldn't
Morrison,
be
like from
Jim
The Doors?
Morrison. Yeah, because Larry Underwood is a very Jim Morrison type rocker.
Okay, wow.
I don't know, you know, I'm not following the music scene enough to be able to tell you, but I would imagine he would have a Jim Morrison persona. How about you? Any thoughts on Larry Underwood?
I mean, didn't King say like it was Bruce Springsteen inspired?
Yeah.
So I mean,
That'd be good.
I mean, I don't immediately go to musicians to play. I can get why you would do that. That now. I don't know.
Yeah, now
I mean,
it's like
no. Actually, you know, you mentioned Randall Flagg. I mean, I could have just mentioned McConaughey. McConaughey could have done this probably like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I thought he had a good look. I can't remember the name of the actor. I'm sorry.
for Randall Flagg.
No. For Larry Underwood.
Oh yeah, but he looked a little like Rick Springfield.
Yeah. He looked okay, but it was the acting. I mean, like you got to have. I thought Gary Sinise was incredibly.
He was awesome.
Gary Sinise is great and everything.
Yeah.
Adam Stork.
Adam Stork.
Thank
Yes.
you, Sean.
I mean, even Rob Lowe was great. That was not a character I was expecting to be like, oh, he's playing my Rob Lowe.
Nick Andros.
Yeah. But Larry
Willie Ames, I think. If you can be Bible Man, then you can.
Was it Zap?
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I've learned from this is there are, I forget if it's like 90-something books that Stephen King has written, and over nearly it's like 45, 50.
Oh my God,
like,
yeah.
I mean, you could just go on and on.
We should just throw out some other titles. I mean, we have from the 80s, you got Cat's Eye, Silver Bullet.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Of course, the infamous Maximum Overdrive, directed by King himself.
Yeah, that's right. For listeners, he actually directed that.
And he later admitted it was like a terrible
The only
movie.
memorable part of that movie is the Green Goblin car.
Yeah, and he
that's
said
cool.
he would never direct again.
Right.
That's maybe for the best.
And like we had mentioned, the Tales from the Dark Side movie, which had one story in it, I think was The Cat from Hell,
Right.
Yeah.
which was a short story. Stephen King. And that is kind of like the unofficial Creepshow 3. The Lawnmower Man, which is probably the less said the better, the theatrical version.
Right.
Film is really not good, I have to say.
Night Flyer, another one. That's
Night
not-
Flyer I've never seen, actually. Sleepwalkers, which was an original screenplay by King and directed by Mick Garris, blows. It's a pretty bad movie.
Wow.
I mean, it's just pretty bad. I mean,
Guess we're not getting
both
Mick
men
Garris
have
on
done
our
much
show.
better stuff. No, but it's
Mick Garris has
Bag
his
of
own.
Bones is very good though.
I've not seen Bag of Bones.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Pierce Brosnan.
But we got Thinner.
Oh, well, that was Tom Holland. Tom Holland,
not-
guest of the friend of the
not great.
show.
Yeah, it's
but he had-
it's
it
better.
tries.
It's better when I went back to it.
But you know what? He kind of
Right.
admitted. He kind of
Yeah.
admitted he thought that
It was
he
a challenge to do that movie,
And
yeah.
he kind of said something about dropping the ball. He should have done this.
Right.
Something different.
Well, and
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
Joe Mantegna play the gangster Janelli in that was genius.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
pretty good.
I do love Joe.
But tons of like you were saying, Constantine. So many TV movies and miniseries on TV. I mean, you
Can't
had
count, right?
you had sometimes they come back. The
And
Golden
maybe
Years,
they shouldn't.
the Tommy Knockers, the Langoliers, the TV version of the Shining, Storm of the Century, Rose Red. You had the Dead Zone TV series. You had the Salem's Lot remake on TV. List goes on. I mean, there's so many. And
Under the Dome.
yeah, I never saw Under the Dome. Is that still on? Is it still going?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
King was pretty pissed off that he was an executive producer on it. He was pissed off it did not get a lot of press.
Really?
The network did not promote it, apparently.
But I think that in light of the success of it, I think new people are being reintroduced to
Maybe it's
Stephen
like a
King,
little resurgence.
and I'm wondering,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's some of these films from the past might be remade again,
Well,
and then
yeah.
and it seems like there's no sign of him
Well,
slowing
how about
down.
instead of remakes, Constantine? I want to ask you, like, are there still a lot of works by Stephen King that have simply not been adapted at all yet? Like past stuff of his that just for whatever reason has slipped through the cracks.
Yes, and I'm thinking of one particular. I'm not going to mention because a friend of mine wants to try to turn it into a.
Okay, that seems like
Okay, great. All right.
I would think that the
Don't say anything.
I would think that Hollywood though has tried to mine every single thing.
I'm guessing everybody's reached out to him at some point and said,
Right.
"I want this, that, or the." I mean, like I was mentioning the breathing method earlier. Like,
Right.
I don't know if somebody still has the rights, but that was a story that I know at one point I was interested in, just as a dollar baby type of situation.
Right.
But
Is that deal still going with him?
Oh,
Yeah, I think
Really?
it is. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Wow, you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, we should
The
do all
dollar
of them.
baby thing is still going on.
For the Monster Party movie, we should just adapt 5 separate Stephen King stories.
There's a lot. Well, there's
sorry, guys. We've not even talked about the Dark Tower, but
I have not.
let's
I have
just
not
at
seen
least
the Dark
mention
Tower
the
yet.
Dark Tower.
Have you seen
Yeah.
it?
No, not the movie. I'm talking about the book series.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
But James and I talked about it. Like we were gonna acknowledge it, but it's too vast. That kind of really
Right.
deserves its own.
I
It's
had
like a
told,
There
separate
was a whole
show.
podcast
I
to
had
that,
told
right?
Constantine that I've read a lot of King, but I could never get into the Dark
Are those
Tower
any
books
good?
myself.
Like you've read them all,
Yeah,
and
but
it's more of a kind of a fantasy thing. What is the
Yeah.
deal with that? I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, neither do I.
It's an alternate universe, and you go from one universe to the other.
that kind of does intertwine with a lot of the other books we've actually talked about.
Is that
So,
right? Really?
Well,
That's another thing. There is sort of a
if
shared,
you want to believe that.
Shared
a
universe.
shared King universe.
Well,
that
isn't
right?
isn't
Wow.
also doesn't the shop appear in several of his
Yes.
movies, right? Like
The
the company or the kind of
covert
like
organization
the
from
shopper after Firestarter, and it appears in other ones too,
appears in
right?
Other ones, and there are characters. Jack Sawyer from The Talisman shows up in the Tommyknockers. Certainly, there's a lot of that I think in the Dark Tower books. King himself shows up in one of the Dark Tower books.
You know what? I kind of like the Tommyknockers, the book.
Really?
Yeah.
I couldn't get through it.
You know what?
I didn't read that one.
I thought it was bizarre, and I don't know about the conclusion necessarily, but there was enough weird stuff in that kept me hooked. I didn't see the TV movie thing. I don't know if that was any good.
I did not see it.
No.
No, I think I saw. I think it was several nights. I think I saw one night. I didn't see the
I
whole
would
thing.
just tune in for
Yeah.
Tracy Lords and then tune out.
You know, it wasn't bad. 11/22/63 with James.
I heard that was
Franco.
I heard
okay.
that was pretty good. Yeah.
I liked it. I liked the
heard that was
book,
okay.
and from what I saw,
Time travel thing, right?
Anyone
Yeah.
see Cell? I read the book. I thought it
I
was.
didn't see it.
I thought the book was, it was kind of disposable entertainment, but I
Right.
kept with it all the way through.
I read an interview, or I heard an interview where King actually said that's the one film that he thought really should have gotten more attention. Cell, the movie.
Is that right?
Really?
Okay.
He thought it was a good adaptation, and he wished more people saw
Well,
it.
it was
Not
from
a
the-
bad cast, right? I mean,
No, Samuel L. Jackson.
yeah, and
John Cusack.
John Cusack.
And King wrote the screenplay, and they reunited the team from 1408.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it did not get
right,
theatrical.
yeah.
It
Well,
went
that's a
straight
good
I wanna
movie
see
too,
that,
right
though,
there,
'cause I-
1408.
And there was an anthology series I think called Nightmares and Dreamscapes
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It was like on TBS or TNT or something.
Right.
I never
right,
saw that
TNT.
either.
No, it was pretty
That's
faithful
for
adaptations.
podcast
of
number
a-
2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say,
We should
we-
watch
we-
all these.
We've
and-
gone.
That
we-
included a night shift story called Battleground, where
Oh,
little
yeah.
toy soldiers come to life.
I-
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
William
check that
Hurt.
out.
Was that also Tales from the Dark Side?
Battleground? I don't think
Ooh.
so.
I'm because I want to say that I saw that somewhere else, but it could be just the Percocet talking.
I also, I have a soft spot for the 1990 movie Graveyard Shift.
Oh yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
in this like textile mill, and there's like these, these people workers in textile mill, and there's these rats infesting the place.
Right.
But it turns out to be something not a rat, this other giant. I mean, it's a low budget kind of mangy little movie, but I just thought the atmosphere and mood of that place they captured really well. And Brad Dourif plays this kind of crazy rat catcher exterminator guy.
And he has
I know.
one great line. It's like, I'm not like one of those crazy guys you see Bruce Dern play in the movies.
Yeah.
Well, Brad
not a great
Dourif, yes,
movie,
you are.
But I know I just have a small soft spot for that film. Not great, but
All right, so he's got a soft spot.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
Well, we
that
could
must
go.
be really, really nice for you, Sean.
We could go on and on.
And I think we did.
And we have
Yeah.
gone on and on.
Yeah, you have to
Pretty
admit,
epic.
we did cover
this
a
is
lot.
Epic.
We did.
This
Yeah.
really was. This is the epic kind of. It's perfect for a Halloween episode. too.
Constantine,
Yes.
thank you so much.
you
man.
so
I
much.
really
Welcome.
appreciate
Thank you
your
very much.
expertise and your. I mean,
And we weren't too, brutal.
No, I have had 4 Heinekens. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty laid back right now. I
God
gotta
bless
grab
you.
Thank you, and
You're
thank
going to fit in just fine.
And thank you so much for bringing these
my
wonderful
gosh,
props.
yes.
It was really,
yeah,
really cool.
and the Green Mile.
I'm
Holy
excited.
Christ.
I'm
That's
gonna
amazing.
I'm gonna have a piece of the mile.
How about that? Yeah. No, that's unbelievable. That's like,
Awesome.
I know you're
rarely
busy.
do any guests bring us things.
No,
And
not-
this is
We know
Well,
you're.
I would have brought like DVDs or something, but this kind of a little more.
No.
this is
Special.
unbelievable.
Now we know you're a busy guy. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you
Yeah.
can tell us? What can we look forward to?
Plug away.
Well, I mean, the upcoming Blu-ray of It will be eventually released. I mean, I know that's going to happen.
And it
Let's-
will sell well.
I know.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
I don't,
will
I don't get
buy-
a penny off of it, unfortunately.
I
but-
will be buying it
All right.
on Blu-ray.
This is going to come out after the events happen, but I will hawk my friend's magazine, which I actually wrote for. Hold on. So I brought you guys this as well. So this is my issue of Little Shop of Horrors
Oh,
magazine.
yes. Love that
Or
magazine.
if
Yeah.
you're a fan of the John Badham, Frank Langella.
I do like that movie, actually.
I am.
I am.
I do
so
like that.
yes,
Great John Williams score.
Yes.
Can I just say something about that? My
Yes.
mom loves that movie.
Really?
Oh, Frank
Yes.
Langella. She's like,
Oh, yeah.
that was, I
He's-
think,
he's
the
a-
last
he
time
makes
she
a
got
good
wet
Dracula.
he was a sexy man.
was for Frank Langella to
I
the
do
point
like that
where
movie.
for her birthday, I got her the one sheet of that.
Oh.
And they had
Nice.
it framed like, I don't even know where they found this framing place, but it was like the least amount of effort that could go into framing something. So it was like, plastic frames, and then like there's not even, there's glass or there's plexiglass. This was like shrink wrap, but it's in
But
there.
she loves it, right?
And she loves it, and to this day, it's in their laundry room.
Wow. That's awesome.
And I think that's maybe where she goes to have her private time. Just
That's great.
There it is.
there it is.
I like that movie.
My mom is very excited about this issue.
Nice. Well, I spent a couple years researching this, the story of the making of Dracula, and
nice.
actually on Saturday, you're talking about Taylor White and Creature Features. I will be there speaking with director John Badham, one-on-one. Hopefully, sorry it'll have passed by the time this comes out, but
Will it?
that's exciting.
Oh, okay.
But you can go online to littleshopofhorrors.com, check out the magazine.
Awesome.
It's still for sale. There's a new issue coming out about the making of To the Devil a Daughter. There's a lot of great stuff. If you
Oh,
look Hammer,
I like that
Hammer
one.
horror
Yeah.
films.
Natasha Kinski.
Yes.
It's
so
underrated, I think.
Yeah.
It is. It's one of the
Yes.
last hurrahs
Yeah.
of Hammer at the time. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's, I'm doing a lot of stuff here and there, but
Awesome.
Yes, you are.
Very cool.
Well, we'll have to have
so
you
happy
back.
to have you.
Yeah,
Constantine.
no, you were
Thank
great.
so
You
much.
appreciated.
aside from the gifts, which of course always helps.
Yes, and you're the
But,
voice of sanity. Here.
Yeah. But amazing stories.
Yes, awesome.
And if you will come to us again to be a guest on our show, that would make us very happy.
We would love
And
Thank you.
anytime you want anything plugged,
Comic books. We can talk about comic
we
books.
could talk about
yeah.
Comic-Con. Yes, you're.
Yeah, that'll be great, but we'll save that for another show.
Yes, we
Right.
will.
Right. Well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure
Awesome.
hanging out
Thank
with
you,
you, chatting
Constantine.
monsters.
Thank you, and happy Halloween, everybody.
Time for a listener shout out. We have a very special shout out.
Ooh.
This goes out to
Very special one.
the Monster Charity Project 2017.
The Monster
What's that?
Charity Project.
What this is, it's 28 Frankenstein monster busts that are going to be reimagined and customized by 28 of the United Kingdom's top special effects artists. Wow. They will all be auctioned for Make-A-Wish UK.
Nice.
That's so cool.
This is a group, you can find them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram if you look for Monster Charity Project 2017. So
Awesome.
please check it out, support it. It looks like a fun and definitely a good cause. Also, a quick shout out to Pashur, our body paint artist friend, who
Yes.
is the proud owner of a Monster Party cap.
Yeah.
So thank you,
And
Pashur.
he's
love
a
him.
fantastic body paint artist. Amazing.
His work is in my head as we speak.
Yes.
Are we gonna be painted in body paint? Is that
Does anyone need that to happen? I don't think so.
No.
Also, want to announce now for the first time that Monster Party will be at Monster Palooza next April in the Pasadena Convention Center.
That's true.
And we will have, for the first time, we will have a booth of our own.
Yeah.
Now, if there's ever been a reason to come to Pasadena in April,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's now.
I don't know.
This.
Yeah.
We have such surprises
Oh my
planned.
gosh.
Do we?
We don't even know what the surprises
Yes.
are. That's how surprising
Yeah.
it's going to be.
I have no
complete surprise.
Yeah.
You can
Surprise
stop
to
by-
humanity.
Stop by and chat. I can guarantee there will be flyers. Also,
Limited edition. You get one of 10,000.
Since it is the season for Halloween, we have been invited on some of our friends' podcasts, our dear friends, such as Jackie Cation. And
Friend of the show.
Yes,
Dork Forest.
where Larry and I have recently made a Halloween visit to chat.
I
with
hear
friends.
it went very well.
Me
It
too.
was
I
a
hear
lot of
that.
fun. It was a lot of fun. Again, that's the Dork Forest. Check it out.
Awesome.
Also, the Legal Geeks with Josh.
That's right.
Gilliland,
The
where
Legal Geeks.
We will all be on
That's
the Legal
right.
Geeks
That's-
talking
That's correct.
classic Universal monsters with our friend Josh Gilliland.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Man, that's a lot of exciting events happening.
Yeah,
It
really.
is.
It's like overload.
Speaking of overload, I want to thank our special sponsors at Creature Features. Hey! Creature Features, located at 2904 West Magnolia Boulevard in beautiful downtown Burbank. Taylor, Eric, and Matt, they have a great store filled with everything that you could possibly want for your monster needs. CDs, DVDs, toys,
Stephen King
models.
stuff?
Stephen King stuff.
King
They also
things.
have, and you have to check out their website because it has all kinds of information about all their art gallery shows that they have every month. They have special events. You have to check them out. They also have a special eBay store at C Features, and you can see what stuff they have up on eBay. Yeah, I also want to thank Time Tunnel Toys. Hey! Time Tunnel Toys at 1583 Meridian Avenue in beautiful downtown San Jose, California. And Joe and Sharon, they have a great store that is filled with antique toys, vintage toys, kitschy stuff, black velvet paintings, and about every 6 months or so, they put together a antique toy convention, which is so great. It's a lot of fun. Check out Time Tunnel Toys, and it'll give you all the information.
Very cool. Let's also remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Monster Party TV, on Twitter at Monster Party HQ, Instagram also Monster Party HQ. If you're listening to us on iTunes, please take a moment and write a review. If you're interested in buying a Monster Party cap, which has 18 billion stitches,
No.
Oh, you know, this bit never gets old.
kind of does, doesn't it?
But I don't know why you have to lie to people. I mean, Sean with his line, and it's like,
I guess
you know,
I was
you
so
with your
impressed by all
line.
those
I want to
stitches.
audio hang myself.
I think I just did.
Yeah.
Well, you can find it at the Monster Party store on eBay. The Monster Party store on eBay, which is called, you guessed it, Monster Party Store. Check it out.
Right.
It's easy to remember.
Indeed.
Cool.
I'll say. And on that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong!
Watch and read any of the works of Stephen King. And remember what Pennywise says, you'll float too. Or is that Percocet?
Matt, that was
Nice.
perfect.
Epic.
Boy, you guys are getting so good.
And do we have enough? I don't know how much
Blooper stuff?
blooper stuff we have.
You don't need it.
Maybe we don't need it?
For a 3-hour show.
It was a pretty long
Yeah.
show.